Good Monday morning to you, Denver. You've tuned in to the Jeff and Bill Show on 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe. Good morning, Bill. How was your weekend?
Hey, not too bad. A little busy, a little hectic. Lots of things going on. Helping mom move, which was nice. Although, I get over there and she keeps going. You can take this stuff and you can take this stuff and you can take this stuff. And I have a lot of stuff. So yeah. I had to tell mom, like, listen, I need to purge some stuff before I can take more of the other stuff. So that's going to be done today before I head back to her house later in the week. Had a lot of radio to do. It was nice, though. She sent over some jackets and things that my father had and some other stuff that were in closets. And they'll work for my older son and myself, some of the jackets. So I was able to purge stuff out of the closet that we needed to get rid of that is very nice. Jackets that were too old that nobody's wearing. So it was a nice excuse to make room in the closet. It's not much better than it was before. It's still packed full of jackets, but at least they're different jackets.
A little better.
Yeah, I feel a sense of accomplishment, even though it is absolutely illusionary. But that's okay. How was your weekend? What'd you guys do?
Well, my parents went through a very similar thing that you have gone through. So when my father's dad passed away, he hadn't cleaned out anything. So they had I think they spent 6 weeks cleaning out his house to get it ready to be sold. And so my parents took that upon themselves to make sure they don't do that to us. And as a result, they have literally emptied their house. I kind of joke with my parents that, like, wow, when they finally pass away and we go in to help them, there's just going to be a mattress on the ground.
Oh, that's nice.
They've literally gotten rid of everything.
There's a real plus
at this point. Right. Right. Well, it's great to have everybody on the Jeff and Bill Show. This is where in Denver, you will get the freshest insights and hottest takes to kickstart your day. It's going to be a snowy day here in Denver. You've got this blizzard that's come through. I don't know where you are, Bill, if it's still hitting you. Out here in Elizabeth, it's still pretty windy and cold.
Really? We got, it's just slight little flakes falling down. It's more slush than actual accumulation. Really? Yeah. But the roads right now, if you are driving, be very, very, very careful. They are tremendously icy and you don't see it because it's a combination of slush that's built up, but also ice that's frozen below it. So it can be a little tricky, especially going around turns. That can be a lot of fun. Found that one out this morning.
Did you do a 360
it just slid. The back end of the car just slid a little bit, and not a lot, but it was one of those. And I wasn't going fast. Yeah, around the turn, but I was like, whoa, okay, all righty. We're not going to go that fast around the next turn. Yeah, just a tiny bit, but just enough. And coming up and down and watching some other cars stop because, as we all know, those with the 4-wheel and all-wheel drives, that is drive. It is not 4-wheel or all-wheel stop. So saw a couple of them slide a little bit today, but it's only because of the ice, not buildup of snow. So the idea is just be careful and cautious and understand that may not just only be water in front of you. So yeah, that's about it.
Wise words.
Yeah.
Well, we're gearing up for a whole nother morning of engaging discussions, critical analysis, and most importantly, your calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. We want your voice to be a part of this conversation today. So give us a call at 303-696-1971. That's 303-696-1971, or text us on the 710 KNUS app. We've got a whole lot to cover today. Donald Trump's got a $460+ million bond due. Wow. Is he going to deliver on that?
Jeez.
He just posted on Truth Social. Like less than 10 minutes ago about this. We'll cover that as well as the squatters. What's that?
Wonder if he found the money. As of yesterday, he didn't have the money. Yeah, and squatters.
I don't think he does.
I don't think so.
I don't think he does. Could he invoke squatters' rights in New York?
There we go.
That's one way to get around this. So we'll cover not just Donald Trump's issues, but squatters' rights in general, and how this is going to become a bigger issue in this country. Incredible article about how often this is being implemented now, and the way that they're using kind of these loopholes in laws to get around this. So we'll cover that. And then Ben Shapiro and Candace Owens, this blew up on Friday. And then all weekend on conservative Twitter, this became a big issue. Christ is King was trending, and then is that anti-Semitic, and all the big debate over Twitter. on Ben Shapiro and Candace Owens. We'll talk a little bit about that and kind of interfaith relationships. This is something that's really important to me, actually. And so we'll get into that in the 8 o'clock hour. And then 9 o'clock, Ronna McDaniel on NBC, and the treatment.
Yeah.
The response that came from Chuck Todd and others to the fact that she's now being paid by NBC to be an analyst is fascinating.
Where did Chuck Todd find his spine? Where'd that come from? That was a Chuck Todd I've never seen before. Where's that dude been?
I know. And they call him Sleepy Eyes Chuck, right?
Yes.
Wasn't that Donald Trump's response to him?
Oh,
because most of the party's been kind of low energy. And he got really fired up about this. We're going to play the audio.
It was, I was surprised. I went back and listened to it a couple of times and went, that's not Chuck Todd. That's not him. That's not, I mean, that's something that you may have, I mean, you wouldn't have heard a Tim Russert get that animated quite, but it was a perspective that I feel you would have heard coming out of Tim Russert. That perspective about journalism. That's the part that I focused on, his perspective on journalism and what this means. And it was an interesting commentary. I was like, oh, wow. I was surprised because in his conversations, I've never viewed Chuck Todd as a journalist because I don't think that he asks the right questions or approaches it the right way. And this, I heard it, went, oh, wow. You do actually kind of know what you're doing. You've got it. It gave me an insight to him. So I can't wait to play that. Yeah.
That's an interesting perspective because I saw it as essentially an initiation on her, that you've been too partisan, you're too conservative, and the price to pay to be an analyst on NBC is to criticize Donald Trump. That's how I saw it.
Interesting. Comments. Oh, this is going to be fun. This is going to be so much fun.
I'll be in the 9 o'clock hour. So a whole lot to cover today. You're not going to want to miss it. Let's check in on the news with Blake Olson.
All right, guys. Happy Monday. 20 degrees with plenty of snow on the ground in Denver, expecting highs in the upper 30s. The 7-10 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story, as Billy mentioned, take precautions on the road this morning as the rest of the day. There was a near zero visibility situation in some areas early this morning around the metropolitan area. Could be icy on your commute. One person is dead and 2 others wounded following a Sunday morning shooting at a house party in Commerce City. Neighbors heard multiple gunshots. Police working to apprehend suspects. They're looking for a small, older model white pickup truck. 2 men shot at an Aurora business on Saturday night along North Tower Road, and one suffered life-threatening injuries. What led to it remains unclear. No word on suspects or arrests. The deadline drawing near for the former president. Reports indicate that Trump's legal team is working hard to secure that $500 million bond for the political hit job by Attorney General from New York, Leticia James. Civil rights attorney David Cohen with Mark Levin last night.
It's absolutely outrageous. I think the American people, any reasonable person believes he ought to have the right to appeal this. There are tremendous issues in this case. Taking it back a step, remember, this law, it's 6312, New York executive law. You don't even have the right to a jury trial. There's a case from 2012 that says so, People versus First American Corporation. And it says the reason you don't have the right to a jury trial is because this is supposed to be of equitable nature or regulatory nature. Damages are incidental to it. Well, the $500 million isn't incidental, and he should have had the right to a jury trial.
Conservatives not happy with the $1 trillion spending bill signed into law by the president. Texas Republican Chip Roy called the bill a total failure for Republican leaders. Vice President Kamala Harris, brushing up on her geography, says Israel can't do what they're doing.
We have been clear in multiple conversations and in every way that any major military operation in Rafah would be a huge mistake. Let me tell you something. I have studied the maps. There's nowhere for those folks to go.
And so she studied her maps, and Dan Senor, author of Genius of Israel, with Hugh Hewitt.
I actually was cringing at that line. I've studied the maps. I don't even know what that means. Look, Israel can go to Rafah. Obviously, they can debate with administration how best to move some 1.3 million Palestinian civilians. They probably need to move some of them out of Rafah before they go in, get them possibly up to the north. I know the Israeli government is working with the U.S. on that right now.
Senor says Israel has to win this war. New York Mayor Eric Adams called off his trip to the southern border over safety concerns. He was due to leave Saturday to meet with humanitarian leaders, but safety concerns, well, that's all you need. I don't think that's any surprise to anyone. News brought to you by Lair Fireplace and Patio, Denver's premier source for everything fireplace, patio, and grills, locally owned and operated since 1954. Online at lairfireplacepatio.com. 18 in Boulder, 17 in Castle Rock, 20 in Denver.
You don't have time for this. It's Simpson with a 3. That's it. Game over. The Marquette Golden Eagles are going to the Sweet 16.
CU Buffs NCAA tournament run comes to an end. Marquette beats CU 81-77, but the CU women's team advancing. Yep, they run past Kansas State 63-50 Sunday. They move on to the Sweet 16. Yeah, you're right. It is tough if your men's team doesn't win. It's good to see the women's.
That was great.
The women's team. Yeah,
women played so well. The men,
they did.
Yeah, Blake, you got a chance
I'm starting
to watch the game?
warm up to women's basketball. By the way, I mean, it's fun to watch. It really is. So
on that point,
they move on to Sweet 16.
Caitlin Clark.
Yeah, Caitlin
she's
Clark,
like more popular in our house than any dude right now in men's basketball.
I believe it's one of those weird things. I talk with my 7th grader about this. The basketball players are so good now and athletic on the men's side that the court is so small. Everything's played above the rim. I mean, there are so many good players. Yeah. And when you watch a women's game, all of a sudden it's like, oh, wait a minute, there's space on the court. You know, no one's going to dunk. I mean, it's not played above the rim, but you know, there's the offenses, they actually execute offenses, and the defenses are interesting. And there's a lot of excitement and great players. So it's going to be fun to watch this CU women.
I think the ladies are stronger on the fundamentals than the men are across the board. And I think that's what really makes the women's game appeal. And I spend some time with my son when he was getting used to soccer and other friends and watching women's soccer, because same thing as basketball. The women fundamentally, based on positional play and types of passes and what you'd expect the offense to build, they're much, much more well-trained. And
no question.
Yeah. And so that's why I think the women's basketball is so much fun to watch right now, because it is almost to a certain point playing with the X's and O's that your coaches, if you ever played, gave you on the little script and things in practice, that they're moving the way that you were taught to move. I think you can put yourself on that court a lot easier than you could with the men. And again, I can't, because I'm shorter.
It's also,
I'm not that tall.
It's also history, right? Caitlin Clark has more points than anybody in NCAA history, right?
Yeah.
So you watch that and you're
incredible.
Like, this is cool to watch.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, she's an entertaining player to watch, but she could shoot. Yeah. I mean, from anywhere. That's kind of what Steph Curry did with the NBA, in the last decade. Just stretch the floor, being able to shoot with the range that he has. So it's going to be fun to watch the CU women's team. They've had, over the years, they've had plenty of success and a tradition-rich program. So good for them.
Yeah, and the men,
rooting them on.
The men yesterday, I watched that Marquette game, and you're talking about a handful of plays. You're talking about a handful of baskets and maybe a couple of free throws.
They had a chance to win that.
And, and to look at how much more athletic Marquette was and how CU stayed with them. Very intelligent. That team had a hell of a lot of heart. I really appreciate what Tad Boyle had got them to do. But in my opinion, in the second half and in the first, the times in which they faded were the times in which they stopped playing for each other. It meant they didn't move off the ball. They weren't doing some screens. There were a couple of offensive possessions where everybody in a black jersey, with the exception of the guy with the ball, was standing still. That's not an offensive set, and you're not going to be able to get open for a free shot. So when you do that, the guy's stuck taking a shot at the last 5 seconds and low percentage. But oh well, yeah. But I'm not playing.
He's a legend in Colorado, outstanding coach. When I was in high school, when Tad went to Greeley Central, he was our Larry Bird. That was the guy.
I bet.
And when he went to Kansas and won championships and did everything that he was able to do, when he came back to the event center at CU and played, it was amazing, the crowds that were there, because they booed him every time he touched the ball against CU. You know, it was awesome.
Yeah.
And now he's the head coach, and everything he's been able to do has been fun. He's a great leader for that team. So
his post-game interview on Friday when they won was phenomenal. It was really quick, and they asked him, "What are you going to do about Marquette? How are you going to stop them?" He goes, "I have no idea, but I'm going to have to figure that out really quickly," and which is really honest. And
no doubt.
Yeah, and the other one they talked about, Coach, what about this and this and this? And they were asking him about things that he did, and he said, no. He said, when you get into March, this is a players' tournament. We as coaches set them up, but this is a players' tournament, and the players that show up and do special things, those teams are able to do special things in the tournament. And I'm like, perfect. Just incredible.
So true.
Yeah, incredible, dude.
Can't grip during March Madness, no doubt. You got to play and have confidence and play with fluidity, if that's a word. All right, the Grizzlies and the Nuggets tonight at Ball Arena. The Avs have won 9 straight, 5-4 overtime win over the Penguins, and it's Monday with Jeff and Bill as they continue. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
710 5-day forecast, a winter weather advisory through mid-morning. Lingering areas of snow showers possible, especially early in the day. Quite cold. We're only going to make the 30s with a cold north wind. Gusty at times. Very cold tonight for this time of year. Low to mid-teens. Partly cloudy Tuesday, maybe a snow shower in the afternoon, highs low 40s. Few snow showers, 20s Tuesday night. Partly cloudy and warmer and dry Wednesday and Thursday. Clouding up Friday, maybe some showers. Meteorologist Don Day on 710 KNUS.
Your mic's hot. You know what that was right there?
Was that you playing that?
No, that wasn't. That was me making a mistake. I had to send something to Blake, and I accidentally left his source open. So yeah, that was Blake's phone. So Blake's having a phone call.
I want to know a guy who gets this many calls at 6 in the morning.
What the hell? Jeez, the only other dude that I knew that got as many calls in the morning was because let's just say no, his stockbroker knew that he was a live fish, and so it literally during commercial breaks the broker would call and give him tips so that he could make trades during the show.
Funny.
Yeah, which I'm sitting there going, and he's going, oh, he's making sure I make a lot of money. I'm going, no. He knows that every time he makes a trade, he gets a commission.
He gets a commission. Yeah, that's exactly right.
You're an ATM at this point. You understand this, right? You get this relationship that's happening here. He's only doing this because you keep saying yes, and the money keeps coming in. Like, well, yeah.
Well, speaking of ATMs, Donald Trump's trying to empty out his. He's got a $454 million bond deadline, and it wasn't clear as whether or not it was midnight last night or midnight tonight. This is from USA Today. Monday is former President Donald Trump's deadline to put up a bond or make a deposit of more than $450 million to shield his assets while he appeals a New York civil fraud trial loss. The New York Attorney General's office didn't respond to the USA Today's request for comment as to whether or not Trump had to the end of Sunday or the end of Monday before the office may start collecting. The $454 million judgment against Trump was entered February 23rd in the 30-day window for Trump to post the appeal bond or place cash with the New York court would expire Sunday unless extended to fall on a weekday. Either way, New York Attorney General Leticia James could move to freeze up Trump's assets or seize his property very soon. My sense from reading these articles and looking into this is that they couldn't just walk in and grab his property like today, essentially squatters' rights. They would have to begin this is from CNN, a complicated legal maze of seizing Trump's assets if the former president doesn't secure the bonds necessary. he just posted on Truth Social about 15 minutes ago. Crooked polls. There should be no fine. Did nothing wrong. Why should I be forced to sell my babies? Interesting.
His children,
term.
really?
Because a corrupt New York judge and AG said a fake and ridiculous number. Take his cash so that he can't use it to defeat his political opponent, crooked Joe Biden. Election interference, all headed up by the White House. This includes Fannie, and the corrupt Manhattan DA Bragg admitted there was no crime, was mortified by what Mark Pomerantz did. I don't know who Mark is. And he should be. Witch hunt.
Yeah, this is weird, huh? Because Trump thinks the president can do whatever he wants. This is very strange. It's
to this point, this is where you and I are going to find a little bit of difference.
Yeah.
Let's play Leticia James on Trump. Play that audio if you don't mind,
The
Bill.
president of
That'd
the
be great.
United States has complained that I'm engaging in some sort of political witch hunt, that I've got some personal vendetta against him, that I campaigned against him. That is not true.
This illegitimate president who sits in the White House. That president, because he's not my president, he's an illegitimate president. His days are numbered. His days are numbered.
We've got to get ready to mobilize, and we've got to get ready to agitate and irritate until victory is won, but more importantly, until Trump is defeated. We will all rise up and resist this man, and ultimately we'll bring him down. This illegitimate president, I'm going to give you the same level of respect that you gave to President Obama, and that is absolutely no respect at all. Donald Trump has got to go. Hey, hey, ho, ho. Donald Trump has got to go. Hey, hey, ho, ho. And the day of Donald Trump are numbered. Lock him up. Lock him up. Lock him up. Lock him up. Lock him up.
That is not true.
All of that audio right there was the same person.
Yeah.
That was Leticia James, the Attorney General of New York. Now, Bill, you and I have had this conversation about this case a lot of times on this show. And I understand your argument that if Donald Trump had done nothing wrong, well, then he wouldn't be in this position. But when you see somebody like that, who is so motivated to take down political opponents, you can't really believe that this prosecution was above board and not motivated by taking down a political opponent.
Well, the comment I was making earlier about Donald Trump was his reference to his immunity claim. Is it Trump says that president's totally immune from everything they do in office. So it's weird that then he turns around and accuses Biden of doing some crimes. That's really weird for a guy who says the president should be allowed to do whatever. And then he turns around and claims political prosecution and persecution, election interference. If Donald Trump actually believed that the president had immunity, he wouldn't be complaining about it. So that's the filter that I have. I understand Leticia James, and yes, I believe that she should not have gone out there and campaigned like that against Donald Trump. But the only thing I've got, though, is that I remember in 2015 and 2016, there were giant crowds at someone's rallies chanting about locking somebody else up prior to a trial, prior to a full investigation, any of that. And they were chanting, and he was promising to open an investigation into his political opponent. So
in light of that, are you agreeing that all of this is just political theater then?
No, I'm saying that if the filter is, oh my gosh, this is all political theater because Leticia James, or this is a political prosecution because Leticia James went out there and vowed to do this to Donald Trump. Well, then Donald Trump was doing the same thing. Don't complain about something.
But the same thing. I mean, I know it may be the same words. Obviously, lock him up, lock him up.
Yeah, lock her
up. But
up.
Did he ever sick people on Hillary Clinton the way Leticia James says?
Again, he tried to. He went to the Department of Justice. We know he talked to Jeff Sessions about charging Hillary Clinton and the FBI, and there were investigations by Republicans who held the House and the Senate at that time. We can talk to Marco Rubio, who might be Donald Trump's VP. He led the investigation, I believe, into Hillary Clinton. and they didn't find any crimes.
I don't think it's the same level.
No. Well, the thing is,
I think this is a whole nother level of lawfare because until Hillary Clinton has had to put up
what is
$460 million.
Tell me what the difference is. We have a political campaign where you're talking about an opponent and you're saying you're going to do things and charge them with crimes and maybe lock them up. That's what happened. Whether or not Leticia James or Donald Trump followed up with it, that's different. You're talking about the campaign. The campaign is similar, very similar.
The rhetoric is very similar.
Yes,
but
absolutely.
when it comes to the use of lawfare to go after your opponents, I think we're at a whole nother level here.
The thing
is, this is different though. But Bill, earlier on, you were pointing out that if Donald Trump had done nothing wrong, he wouldn't be in this position. That this is a legitimate prosecution, and I don't think that this is a legitimate prosecution.
Here's the thing: it can be both political and legitimate. It's not one or the other. It's not, in my opinion, it's not one. It can't be one or the other. It can be both. It absolutely can be. They're not mutually exclusive. Donald Trump can have done the crimes, and Leticia James politically could be going after him because of those crimes, and she had a chance to bring a case in a court of law, and she proved it. And the answer that Donald Trump always has is it's corrupt. If he loses, the process is always corrupt. Go back. He complained about not winning Emmys because it's corrupt. He complained about not winning an election because it's corrupt. He complained about stuff he couldn't do in the White House because it's corrupt. He loses in court every single time. Every judge is somehow magically corrupt. I think that's called a pattern of behavior. And again, it can be true that Leticia James went after him totally for political reasons. But it can be true at the same time that he did the crimes and should have to pay. Both of those can be true.
I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Donald Trump today needs to deliver a $464 million bond.
Why can't you get the money?
My perspective from that audio is that this is political warfare. It's lawfare used to go after a political opponent to take away money in a presidential election, by the way. An election cycle, take away money from your opponent, seize your assets. There's very little of this that seems fair to me, and a lot that seems like we're living in Russia.
So if I declare that I'm running for president, it doesn't matter what crimes I've committed or continue to commit. All I have to do is declare that I'm running for president, and then he can't charge me for anything because then it's political. Obviously, help me understand where we're going with this.
I would like to hear from the listeners, 303-696-1971, or text us on the 710 KNUS app. Do you agree with Bill that this is both at the same time a fair prosecution of a crime that was committed and political lawfare, but he shouldn't have done the crime and it wouldn't have opened him up to this? Or do you agree with me that this is political lawfare in its entirety, and the seizing of assets and the seizing of campaign funds in an election year is closer to Stalinist Russia than what should be happening here in America? 303-696-1971, or text us on the 710 KNUS app. Hey, do you have a high school student considering their college plans? Are they ready to discover more about their gifts and talents? Do you hope to see them become part of the next generation of Christian leaders? Your student is invited to Colorado Christian University's Discovery Preview. This week-long event is completely free. Discovery Preview is designed for students who desire to seek God's purpose and calling in their lives. Students are immersed in the community, culture, and mission of Colorado Christian University. Workshops focused on calling, career, and Christ-centered leadership help them explore their unique strengths and potential career options. Their Christ-centered community also takes the students on a Colorado adventure to experience the beauty of the Rocky Mountains. Eligible students can also qualify for a $1,250 annual scholarship just for attending. Don't miss Discovery Preview this summer, June 17th through the 21st. The event is designed for seniors and juniors in high school, and again, is absolutely free. To learn more, go to ccu.edu/discovery. That's ccu.edu/discovery. We'll be back with your calls and texts. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710, KNUS.
At this hour in Berlin, I'm Trent Murray, and here are the top stories we're following. The Philadelphia Police Department is seeing success in more recruits passing the entry physical fitness exam. It's all thanks to a new law that's changed the standards. Haley Bianco has the details.
In Philadelphia, the city lowered requirements for the entry physical exam at its police academy. Since the law took effect late last year in Philadelphia, 51% of people testing have passed the entry physical exam, compared with 36% previously. It's part of a broader effort nationally to reevaluate policies that keep applicants out of the job pool amid a hiring crisis. To close the gap, policies on tattoos, previous drug use, physical fitness, and college credits are all being reconsidered. Several states have expanded eligibility to non-citizens, while others have changed the minimum age of officers to 18.
Space forecasters have issued a rare geomagnetic storm watch, saying a solar flare could interfere with radio transmissions here on Earth. Scientists from the Space Weather Prediction Center, which is based in Boulder, Colorado, said an outburst of plasma from the sun could interrupt high-frequency radio transmissions like those used on aircraft. Experts say there's no reason for the public to be concerned, with systems in place to manage the effects of the flare. And that's what you need to know at this hour. I'm Trent Murray in Berlin on Salem News Channel.
Jeff and Bill's show is back. Good morning, Denver. Let's check in with Blake Olson, see the news that Blake's working on.
All righty, Jeff. It is icy on the roads this morning. Take it slow on your commute if you have to drive. And the deadline for, as you have been discussing, former President Trump to pay that outrageous bond in New York today. That and much more coming up at the top of the hour.
Hey, thank you, Blake.
All right,
Appreciate
thanks
that.
so much, Blake. I think we got Tony online. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning, Tony.
Hey, good morning, guys. I think Billy's made a great point that even though it was distasteful, her campaigning and so forth, at the end of the day, she had to go through judges and appellate judges and grand juries, the various cases, not specifically this one, but all of the cases that have been brought against him by whoever that had brought those cases. They still had to go through the legal system, and if she'd been flippant with just going after him for the sake of going after him, then a judge would have said, hey, this is pure harassment, and thrown her case out, maybe threatened her, as an officer of the court for coming up with something ridiculous. But that's not what's happened here. The guy's already, he's got a history in New York. He's already been banned from ever participating in a charity again. He had his school closed down and paid an enormous fine because he was ripping off students. Now they've simply got this history of him fraudulently listing what the value of his assets are, and that still had to go through all the legal process to prove it out, and if the number was right, and whatever appellate judges will be involved over at the end of the day. And so I don't think we can just write it off.
You don't think that this violates the 8th Amendment at all?
How?
Excessive bail, excessive fines imposed.
$464 million. If a judge had that calculation, the way they came up with those calculations, if it was ridiculous, it was out of hand, then the judge should have or could have ruled that, hey, this is an excessive amount, and wipe it out, or an appellate judge down the road will do the same thing. But for right now, those numbers are not being contested by anybody but Trump at this point. So the judge has made a ruling in this case. I respect that process. Now let him go to an appellate judge and see if the appellate judge will overturn it. But they had to have some expertise.
He can't even get before an appellate judge unless he comes up with $464 million. He can't even get in front of a judge.
That is the law. That is the law. He's got to put up a bond for that money. But he's worth, he told us he's worth $10 billion. I mean, he should be able to get at this, But either way, he's got to get at it. And I also think it's important. Nobody, it's not Biden that's done any of this. This is all.
Oh, come on, Tony.
You think
yes, it is. It is absolutely Joe Biden who's behind all this.
What proof do you have of that? What proof do you have of that?
Because he's a Democrat. Of course he's organizing that. This is his prime political opponent. You think his prime political opponent in a presidential election just quietly sits in his basement licking ice cream cones and doesn't have anything to do with this? Oh my gosh. Come on.
No,
Tony, he's behind this.
You have no proof of that. And you know what? I would imagine that Joe Biden has stayed a long ways away from the Justice Department on any of these cases for exactly this reason. You laugh, but it's kind of embarrassing. You have zero proof. This is like saying the election was stolen.
What's the proof that you want? You think he's going to go out there and release his emails and his text messages? Come on. Go after my political opponent, please. Tweet it.
And just as you also believe the election was stolen with absolutely no proof. And now you're sure that Joe Biden is behind this with absolutely no proof. You are.
Leticia James thinks that Donald Trump's not a legitimate president.
I don't care what she thinks. She had to go through the court. She had to prove it to a judge.
Well,
The
hold
judge-
on. The chief prosecutor of the guy doesn't think that Donald Trump was a legitimate president.
It's not surprising that a big number of people are afraid of Donald Trump for a number of reasons, but that didn't change the fact that they still had to make their case in court. They couldn't just walk in and say, oh, they couldn't do what you're doing. They couldn't do what you're doing. They can't just walk in and say, oh, he's guilty, just charge him, hit him with $400 million and then walk away. They can't do what you're doing. They can't just laugh and have an opinion and say, oh,
Tony,
of course Biden's behind it.
Do you think he got a fair trial in New York City?
Why? It was with a
He wasn't
judge. I have
prosecuted
no
in
reason.
Kansas City.
So I'm not going to say that the judge is corrupt. If some appellate judge above him says the judge got it wrong, then that appellate court can do just that.
You can't even
But
get
as
there
of right
because
now,
there's a $464 million
he'll get.
bond.
Of course, he's going to get to appeal. Even if he loses a property, he's going to appeal it.
All this stuff.
He's going to appeal it. So an appellate judge is going to have a crack at this no matter what. As we sit here in the morning at 6:30 in the morning or whatever it is, I can tell you with certainty it's going in front of an appellate judge. And no, it can't be. They have to have evidence, and that appellate judge may overturn it, may not, may reduce the amount. But either way, it's going through the legal system, and I have no reason not to trust that. And you have absolutely no proof that Biden is behind it. It's great radio, but
all right. I do have a question for you, though, Tony.
Yeah,
I got a question for. So this is pollster Frak Luntz, no big fan of Donald Trump over the weekend, warned that New York Attorney General Leticia James' efforts to seize former President Trump's properties could devastate Democrats in the upcoming election. Do you think that that's the case? Do you think that this is going to backfire against them?
Let me say this. Luntz might be right, but also and I think that's respectable coming from him, because Luntz considers him absolutely one of the most dangerous people that's ever held the office. So coming from him, that's saying something. He's simply saying, Democrats, you may have overplayed your hand. Maybe he's right. Maybe he's wrong, but coming from him, given the fact that he thinks that Donald Trump is absolutely the most dangerous president ever to have held the office, that's worth thinking about.
What makes him dangerous? He was already in office for 4 years. What did he do that was so dangerous?
Tried not to leave.
You come from a space. Look, I didn't mean to get. I never am trying to get you to agree with something. I'm simply laying out logic. You are certainly one of these MAGA people who believe that January 6th was legitimate political discourse. You probably think that those are hostages
January 6th was
in jail.
a riot that got out of control, and those that hit cops should be prosecuted. I have no problem with that.
But
my question,
you guys haven't even talked about.
You said Donald Trump was one of the most dangerous presidents. The most dangerous president.
Absolutely.
And I asked you, he was in office for 4 years. What did he do that was so dangerous? He's already had the power. What did he do?
Not try to leave.
He tried to overturn the election. He did everything he possibly could to overturn a free and fair election, and other president
he did everything
in
he
history.
Possibly could.
Everything he possibly could.
And Bill, he left on that day. He challenged the election, but you just listened to Leticia James
he had a plan
about how Donald Trump was an illegitimate president. Don't tell me that
you're going to defend. You're going to defend him forever. And look, it surprises me given your background on political campaigns and so forth. And I'm not going to convince you to walk away from your cult. The best advice I can give you is what they would say to anybody: remember who you used to be. Just every day, just remember who you used to be.
I asked you a direct question on what he did that was so dangerous. And you attacked me personally. All right, Tony, thanks for the call. Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, it's difference is Leticia James, when you brought up the Leticia James versus what Trump did, Leticia James didn't organize a plan to circumvent the results of an election that involved
look where we are
electors.
now. She organized a plan to take down a political opponent and levy
hang on a second. Wait.
$400 million fine.
Wait, what
do you mean?
Where is Donald Trump, Leticia James' political opponent? For what office? For what office? You said her political opponent.
Yes.
For what office is she challenging Donald Trump for?
Listen to that audio we
No.
played.
Answer my question.
This was
For
all
what-
about
for
taking
what
down
office?
a political opponent.
No. You're saying that Donald Trump is Leticia James's political opponent.
Political
For
opponent,
what
yes.
office is she
He's
challenging
not running
Trump
for attorney general, but
exactly.
he's
So
still
she's
his
not
political opponent.
He's not her direct political opponent. You
Joe
can say,
Biden is
hang on
a political
sec,
opponent of
hang
mine. I'm
on.
not running for president.
Hang on a
of
sec.
his.
You can't say that she is attacking her political opponent when she's not running against him.
Oh,
you can say,
can't
hang on
limit
a sec.
political opponents to just the one you're fighting.
No, it
or
becomes
you're running an election against.
it becomes politics at that point, not attacking your political opponent. That's different. And the issue being that Donald Trump had a plan. That's why he's being indicted. That's why he's indicted in Georgia, because he had a direct plan to prevent the certification of the election. That's what he did that is so dangerous. He decided, yes, I see the votes. We did investigations on the votes. I had private individuals do investigation on the votes. I had my Department of Justice do an investigation on the votes. I had my actual political campaign do an investigation on the votes. None of them came back with large-scale fraud, and yet I still claimed fraud, sent out an advertising campaign, put together a plan in order to not leave office. That's an issue.
I think you're expanding the idea that he wouldn't leave office. He left office just fine.
He didn't want to and tried not to. He tried not to. That is correct. He tried not to. Yes, eventually he did because he had to. Otherwise, they were going to come grab him.
Right,
and
but
take
so
him out.
They're
going to drag him out of the White House.
That he is so dangerous.
That he tried to not transfer power. Yes. The guy, we're actually having a discussion saying the guy who last time when he lost an election didn't want to leave office. And now we're like, nope, what could happen? What could possibly go wrong?
What do you think is going to happen? He's going to stay in a third term?
He could try. Absolutely.
He is not going to stay in
He sure could try. He thinks that one was stolen from him already. He may just turn around and say, I need a third term.
You choose the news, Bill. All right, give us a call, 303-696-1971, or text us on the 710 KNUS app. We'll get to your calls and texts. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
get to You Choose the News, Bill.
Yes, it is that time of the morning where we play everybody's favorite fake radio news game show. We'll get to the calls in a second, but first, it's time for the stupid stuff. Yes, we have scoured the interwebs all weekend for these ridiculous stories to give them some dumb headlines to play this fake radio news game because the people in charge are still asleep. So we are trying not to wake them, so do us a favor and do not share what we are doing right now. Alrighty, and also Blake Olson from News Department will be joining us. He gets the final choice. Gentlemen, here are your headlines today. Headline number 1, the wealthy feel sorry for you. Headline number 2, perfect example of American politics. Headline number 3, just leave it anywhere. And headline number 4, maybe it's a message from God. Alrighty, Mr. Hunt, choose carefully.
Just leave it anywhere.
Yeah, just leave it anywhere. In fact, we are going to our very own Boulder, Colorado. Boulder police detectives are telling people, maybe you just shouldn't leave it anywhere. Leave what? Your debit card and your credit card. See, there's a new scam that is running its way in and around Boulder and elsewhere in which someone calls you and says, "Hi, I'm from your bank. There is a problem with your account. Could you please provide me with your account information and your login? Oh, there also is a problem with your debit and or credit card. We love you so much. You are such an important client to us that we will be happy to swing by and pick it up out of your mailbox." And some of the morons believe them and are leaving their credit cards and debit cards in the mailbox where the scammers are driving by to retrieve them at their leisure. We're making it easy for them to steal our money. They actually have a couple of these guys on webcam, and they're even renting cars in order to do it. So if someone asks you, just as a rule, to leave your credit card or debit card anywhere, hard pass. Just
Wow.
that's a PSA from
seriously.
our show to you today. Yes. So we've all learned something here. Alrighty, Jeff, next choice. The wealthy feel sorry for you. Perfect example of American politics, or maybe it's a message from God.
I'd like to hear that message from God. Please.
Maybe it is a message from God. That's what Matthew Arnollis Jr., 33, possibly received recently when he was at the Kauai Community Correctional Center. Well, maybe correct myself. He wasn't actually at the Community Correctional Center anymore. See, last week, just before 1 o'clock in the morning, he broke out and he was running away, and he had gotten to freedom all the way to the highway when he was then promptly hit by a car that kept going. So literally, Matthew escapes from jail. He's about 100 yards away from the correctional facility. He's at the highway. I'm free. Ow, God, this hurts. And the car keeps going. Luckily, they have cameras out there, so officers immediately went out, provided first aid, got him to the hospital, and he's going back in. I'm just saying that maybe it's a
there are
message.
lots of stories in the Bible of the apostles getting freed from prison, but they were not hit by trucks afterwards.
Exactly. I just think that maybe God was saying, stay inside next time. Maybe you don't get to leave. He's saying
Your
something to
missionary
you.
work in the church. please. Or
Exactly.
in jail.
Yes. Alrighty, Blake Olson, News Department. Choose our final story. The wealthy feel sorry for you, or perfect example of American politics.
The wealthy feel sorry for you, Bill.
Oh, they absolutely do. The wealthy feel your pain, but not enough to give you more of the monies. Those are all for them. But they will empathize. See, in a recent conversation, the CEO of Volkswagen Group said the wealthy feel very sad for the poor. He was asked about why brands like Lamborghini, Ferrari, Bentley, Rolls-Royce are seeing double-digit decreases in sales in the past 12 to 24 months. Some of them are seeing nearly 20% decreases. And when the CEO, Adrian Hallmark of Volkswagen Group, was asked, he said, and I'm quoting, "Even though our customers can still afford our cars, there was a level of emotional sensitivity that slowed down demand."
Oh, there you go.
Emotional sensitivity. Emotional sensitivity.
Emotional sensitivity.
Yeah. They feel bad driving by the poors with all their fancy cars. They're like, no, we don't want to flaunt the wealth. That would be silly. We couldn't show them how much money we have. How then could we continue to fool them? Silly peasants. Yeah. So again,
They don't
that's how
have
it
that
rolls.
problem in the NBA. I can tell you that much.
Yeah, not at all. I want to show that off. That is perfect. Thank you so much, Blake. And that is the end of You Choose the News, as always. Jeff and Blake are our winners, and I'm just a giant loser. We are probably sponsored by Roll 'em Out Shelves. Check out rollemoutShelves.com, and they will take care of all the clutter in your house, but don't tell them about this show here. They will charge you more, actually. So back to you, sir. We still got some time to get to the phones if you want.
Yeah, let's get to one of the calls. Do we have Mary still? Or
Yep. Hey, Mary. How are you?
Let's go to Mary.
It's me. Before I start, Bill, had you ever saw a movie called On the Line with Mel Gibson?
Ooh, Doesn't sound familiar, but I saw a lot of movies, so I don't know. I mean, maybe. But
This one it's interesting. It was from 1922, but it's I see you in that. I hope you get a chance to look at it.
I don't know if there's a
It's on,
not,
I think,
I'm curious.
Netflix.
All right, well.
Okay. And the reason I'm calling is that I'm frustrated that the media never talks about it. There doesn't bring up any of the backstory about all these lawsuits. Yeah. In other words, a lot of the prosecutors did a lot of shopping. You talk about grand juries. Yes. I mean, you did them at a 93% against Trump in Washington, D.C., and that grand jury is impartial. You talk about this Carol woman. Nobody talks about how Leticia, there was a law for her to be able to bring that civil lawsuit. They had to have a law because the time of expiration had expired. And they brought the lawsuit so that she could, and then they let that law go. No one talks about
I'm not sure that's with Leticia James. I think that's the other one. I think that's the money laundering.
Is it the one in New York?
There are several in New York. That's the thing. There's the Alvin Bragg one as well. That's the problem.
That is the thing. To Mary's point, I've talked to friends.
Thanks,
Mary. Jenna Ellis being one of them that faces these juries that are shopped and they settle because they know they're not going to get a fair trial.
That's a great argument if only one side did it.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll be right back.
7 a.m. in the Mile High City. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show, 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes to kickstart your day. It's a cold, snowy day here in Denver. Classic spring. Yesterday, I walked out of church, Bill, and my phone was all blowing up. Blizzard warnings, and it was like 60 degrees and sunny. It was a nice day, and then all of a sudden you got this. So.
I didn't believe it either, and I'm walking around, and then I had too much radio to do yesterday, and then late in the afternoon, the dog, we normally go mid mornings for the walk, and she comes over and she's like, "Hey, we forgot something. Hey, we forgot something."
Come on, Pops.
And I'm wondering about this. I'm like, is she telling me we need to go for a walk? And so, and again, we've talked about it before, that how we talk back and forth, and I ask her some questions and use some of her hand signals, and she's like, runs right over to where the leash is kept and looks at it, looks at me, looks at it, looks at me, and then barks.
That's cute.
And I'm like, all right, I get it. Okay, we'll go. So, but that was just as the storm was moving in. So walking, all of a sudden, you see everything starts to get dark, and all of a sudden the wind gets cold and everything else.
Wind and cold and all that stuff.
Yeah, in fact, she wanted to make a turn at one point and go longer on the walk and extend it by another 15 minutes. I'm like, no. I go, I'm sorry. This is getting too cold and windy, and I'm not dressed for this. I've chosen poorly the jacket that I have, and I'm already chilly. So I had to tell her, no, we're going back this way. She was not happy, but we did get home. Yeah. But I was out there, and I was like, oh, they are serious about this, because until then, I thought they were lying to us. I'm like, this is not it. This
right.
Is like,
And then it was kind of late in the evening when it finally hit in. But it is, but I'm broadcasting from the ranch today.
Yes.
The Hunt family ranch, our little ranch here in Elizabeth.
So nice. And I had to drive in, so be careful of those roads. They are icy and slushy. It's more wet than it is buildup of snow. But if you think it looks like just slush, be careful. I found some ice underneath it today, so just be careful.
Ooh, that's rough. That is rough. Well, we continued the conversation, or we're going to continue this conversation with Mary. Tony, in the first hour, we're talking about this bond that Donald Trump's got to deliver, $464 million bond today. Tony making the argument that look, it was a fair trial. This was put forth before the judge. If it's a real problem, they can appeal it. Pointing out that they can't even get to the appeal until they have the bond, and that this violates Amendment 8, excessive fines. And then Mary was talking about how a lot of these prosecutors are jury shopping, or the Democrats are looking for very friendly districts in order to try those that were connected with Donald Trump during the last election. And that is absolutely true. And it's part of the calculus that someone like Jenna Ellis had to make. And I talked to Jenna about this. She was a friend, as you know, she was one of President Trump's attorneys, is that she looked at a jury trial in Fulton County, Georgia, and she just goes, it's not going to be fair. Now that you may have a jury of my peers there, but I'm going to have to appeal this to get it out. And look, all of us in Colorado know that just because there's a court case or there's judges involved or juries involved doesn't necessarily mean it's fair. And I'm going to point to Jack Phillips. Anybody that's a Christian conservative knows that in the state of Colorado, if you're brought up on the same charges that Jack Phillips has been brought up on, you're going to have to get out of this state in order to get a fair trial and eventually get this all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. Bill, do we still have Mary on the line?
Yeah, we do. And I would agree with some of what you said, except for the fact, everybody shops their juries and their trials. Trump in these trials does get to help pick a jury. And so if we just say, oh, no, that the jury system is invalid, then we're invalidating our entire legal system. But the other part is, if we talk about shopping judges and looking for particular judges, we know that in the court challenges that Donald Trump and his attorneys filed to try to overturn the 2020 election, they picked courts that were going to be appellate cases that Clarence Thomas got the first brush at. They specifically chose Clarence Thomas in order to make sure that if it bubbled up that far, he was the first guy to get it. So again, if we're going to say, oh my gosh, it's horrible that we're judge shopping, we need to acknowledge both sides do it. That's all we have to do. That's all I'm asking for in this
what
conversation.
I'm pointing out is Tony's argument that the fine levied against Donald Trump is a totally appropriate fine based upon an independent judge. Let's go to Mary.
You have nothing to show that he's not independent. That's the issue. It's a loaded phrase when you're describing it. But yeah, Mary's back. Hi, Mary.
Well,
good morning.
You guys have been you have made a great statement on both sides. I agree with this, but if you want to talk about Clarence Thomas and a thing, but there are the other, 5 left that can make a difference. So in other words, he may get the point, but that's not the case in a lot of the ones that it's only the single judge. And a good example is like
Mary, hang on a sec. Mary,
he was a contributor in a
Mary. What I was saying about Clarence Thomas was when they were shopping on the appellate procedure. Once you go from the appellate courts and then is kicked to the Supremes, there are districts around the country, and there are assigned to different Supreme Court judges. And the judge and the single judge applied to that area and district can make a preliminary ruling and decide whether or not sometimes it even bubbles up to the Supreme Court. So all I'm saying is that, regardless of whether or not we say that's okay, that Donald Trump and his lawyers went looking for courts that were going to be friendly to him, because eventually Clarence Thomas could be the sole arbiter of some of those decisions.
But Bill, don't you see you're playing both sides of this? So
I'm saying both sides do it.
Like to Tony's point, he's like, no, this was a fair judge, and then we point out, well,
what I'm saying is
shop their judges and they try to get the most friendly area for their case, and then you're like, well, yeah, both sides do it.
Yeah, what I'm pointing out,
that's the point.
Yeah, what I'm pointing out though is that invalidating the process only seems to happen when it goes against your person. If we acknowledge it happens on both sides, stop making the argument. No, stop. The issue for me is stop making the argument.
The whole left is doing that about Clarence Thomas right now. They're making the whole argument that this is that he's invalidated. He needs to pull off.
I get it, and that's why I would sit here and say just stop making the argument, because it's idiotic on both sides. That we acknowledge both sides do it, and until we stop doing it, because all it means is it's an excuse. It's an excuse to not deal with the facts of the case. As soon as you say the referee is biased against my team, you no longer have to explain why you lose. That's the thing. Stop calling the referee biased unless you can show it.
Can I speak now?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mary.
Yeah, go ahead, Mary. Please.
Right ahead. That was good.
No, I agree with you on a lot of your points, Bill. I'm not taking them away. And Jeff, thank you. I think you're doing an excellent job of explaining what my position is. And I don't want to say side, because I guess what I'm looking at is looking at the cases. I mean, even that Shark Tank guy, Larry, says this is wrong. You know what I mean? And it's real detrimental to the economy of New York. My concern is that because of the judge shopping, I mean, and some of those judges that are handling the cases, they should have recused themselves. Because I mean, look at the one in Georgia. And he was a contributor for Fannie. On that. So why is he a judge on that case?
I'm not familiar with the judge contributing to Fannie Willis's election. When did that happen, and what was the which judge?
When he used to work for Fannie. The one that what is it? Epcot. He's the one, or McAfee. Is that the judge?
Don't know. I'm not sure. I haven't heard the charges. I've heard charges of impropriety about the New York judges, but I hadn't heard anything about the Georgia.
Well, yeah, and he used to work in her office and for her, and also he when she was running for the position, he contributed, he and the wife, and also held a fundraiser for
it. Here's the thing, though, is that we have that going on all the time. There are district attorneys here in Colorado that go in front of judges that they used to work with, used to be in the same office. There are district attorneys that hired some of the judges that they go in front of. So this is the problem that I have. I keep hearing this, Mary, as an excuse that rather than to deal with the crimes, we just have to call the process bent and corrupt, and then we get to avoid anything else, and that would be the issue. Is
to my point, Bill. I mean, we've got to get to news here in a second with Blake Olson and Mary. Thanks so much for the call. By the way, Mary's got a lovely voice. You have a great voice for radio. We should maybe join the KNUS team. we've seen it with people like Jack Phillips, where you can tell the motivations of the Colorado Civil Rights Commission are clearly biased against the person that they're prosecuting. And so it ends up, it's like the media too. People are such low trust in these institutions anymore. And it's not just because people feel like they lose. It's because in some cases, these institutions have warranted that low trust. Same thing with the media. You saw the head coach of Louisiana just, over the weekend, the female head coach of the women's team just explode against the Washington Post because of these types of hit pieces that they do. So to say that, just because we lose, therefore we say that the judge is, rigged, and that's not always fair. I think there's a lot of evidence out there that the judicial system's been used in a way to drive political agendas, and that's not a good thing.
Okay. But again, it can be universal. The issue is that I keep hearing as an excuse that as long as our team's doing it, we're cool with it. But if the other team does it, no. And my point is, they both do
like
it.
The judiciary to be pretty dang independent.
I disagree with that, because we could explore that, because there'd be things I think you'd be very, very happy if the judiciary did and stepped into and did things. So that's the idea. Is I don't think that's necessarily.
I'm not chanting lock Hillary Clinton up. Some people are.
I know some people did. Yeah, and some people chanted lock Don up. I get it, but I still just view it as an excuse. Deal with this specific case, because as soon as you say, oh well, obviously the judicial department and DOJ is all rigged against Trump, you no longer have to deal with whether or not he did any of the crimes. You've made an excuse. You've said the ref didn't like us, that's why we lost to the other team. Your particular performance, your particular behavior, your choices no longer matter. It doesn't matter.
And on this case, so if you want to get into the particulars, and we should get to Blake, I do want to hear from folks. 303-696-1971, 303-696-1971, or text us on the 710 KNUS app. I'll respond to Bill in just a second. Let's get to Blake Olson with the news. Good morning, Blake.
Hey, good morning. Great discussion. Love it. 19 and cloudy in Denver after blizzard-like conditions early this morning in some parts of the state. It's going to be a cold one today with highs in the 30s. The 7-10 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story, CDOT says, drive carefully. There are slick and icy conditions up and down the Front Range and, of course, into the high country. Former President Trump's deadline to pay the $500 million bond in his New York civil fraud judgment is drawing near. Civil rights attorney David Cohn with Mark Levin.
The definition of fraud here is different from anything we've ever seen anyplace else. There's no victim, there's no loss, there's no reliance on some representation to cause a loss. They admit all of that. And so it's outrageous that there would be damages assessed in any event.
Hey, Vice President Kamala Harris knows geography and says Israel can't go into Rafah.
We have been clear in multiple conversations and in every way that any major military operation in Rafah would be a huge mistake. Let me tell you something. I have studied the maps. There's nowhere for those folks to go.
Author of Genius of Israel, Dan Senor, with Hugh Hewitt this morning.
I actually was cringing at that line. I've studied the maps. I don't even know what that means. Look, Israel can go to Rafah. Obviously, they can debate with the administration how best to move some 1.3 million Palestinian civilians. They probably need to move some of them out of Rafah before they go in. Get them possibly up to the north. I know the Israeli government is working with the U.S. on that right now.
One person is dead and two others wounded following a Sunday morning shooting at a house party in Commerce City. Police searching for a small, older model white pickup truck. Two men shot at an Aurora business Saturday night along North Tower Road. One suffered life-threatening injuries. No word on suspects or arrests or what led up to it. Instagram making moves to limit the amount of political content that pops up on the app. They said that it would stop proactively recommending political content from accounts that users don't follow. It's 17 in Broomfield, 16 in Lone Tree, and 20 in Denver.
You don't have time for this. It's Simpson with a three. That's it. Game over. The Marquette Golden Eagles are going to the Sweet 16.
CU Buffs NCAA tournament run comes to an end. Marquette beats CU 81-77.
And the Colorado Buffaloes are going back to the Sweet 16 for the second year in a row.
But the CU women's team advances. They run past Kansas State 63-50 Sunday. They move on to the Sweet 16. And if Iowa wins tonight, they will take on Caitlin Clark coming up this Saturday. Get your popcorn. The Grizzlies and Nuggets tonight at Ball Arena. Avs have won 9 straight, 5-4 overtime win over the Penguins. All right, Monday. Jeff and Bill continue. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
710 5-day forecast, a winter weather advisory through mid-morning. Lingering areas of snow showers possible, especially early in the day. Quite cold. We're only going to make the 30s with a cold north wind, gusty at times. Very cold tonight for this time of year, low to mid-teens. Partly cloudy Tuesday, maybe a snow shower in the afternoon, highs low 40s. Few snow showers, 20s Tuesday night. Partly cloudy and warmer and dry Wednesday and Thursday. Clouding up Friday, maybe some showers. Meteorologist Don Day on 710 KNUS.
It might be cold here in Denver, but the conversation is spicy. Man, the text message is just about 50-50, agreeing with me or agreeing with Bill here. I'd venture to say he's not only real estate mogul who commits these, quote, crimes. I find it comical that she says she owes New Yorkers. That's Leticia James. Wonder if she's going to go... But she's going to go after the resort in North Manhattan. I mean, this is amazing. The other question, Bill, on all this is, does it backfire to, Frak Luntz's point over the weekend?
I think
this
Luntz
is not going to work well.
I think his vision is clouded on that one. I don't think that he forgets the view of Donald Trump by the larger electorate. I believe that he is viewing it as what's going to happen inside the Republican Party. Yes, the Republican Party will rally behind Donald Trump, and they will view this as being biased and everything else. But there is a larger segment of the electorate, larger than just the Republican Party alone, that, in my opinion, and from what I've seen, has a different opinion of Donald Trump. And what Luntz, I believe, is discounting are the voters out there that are mad that Donald Trump seems to do things and always get away with them. And that has been kind of things that he's done in the past. And so this could actually reinforce the belief on the other side, saying, finally, something is happening to this guy who has done all these things that I believe are wrong. And that could reinforce that and go, good, then we need to make sure that this continues. So I discount that.
You remember our conversation about actually deporting people cameras and dragging people out? Here's what Luntz says in Fox.
Yeah.
If the New York Attorney General starts to take his homes away, starts to seize his assets, it's all going to be on camera. You're going to create the greatest victimhood of 2024, and you're going to elect Donald Trump.
Yeah, see, I disagree with that. And the reason being is because here's the idea that it does. Okay. Here's my question. Is Alex Jones a victim? He had a $1 billion judgment against him.
Right.
And they're going after his assets. Does anybody view Alex Jones as a victim? Rudy Giuliani.
I don't think,
Rudy Giuliani.
Bill,
same
I don't
thing.
think you can put those in the same category.
But
What Alex said about the Sandy Hook kids and
here's the filter,
property valuation in New York are totally different issues.
No, but what I'm saying is this, is that Frak Luntz is saying, and Luntz's claim is, when the government's coming in to take the assets, that makes Donald Trump look like a victim, as if the government has no claim on those assets. And what I say is, nobody views Rudy Giuliani as a victim in Georgia. Nobody's viewing him going, oh my gosh, I can't believe this happened to wonderful Rudy. How could they possibly do this to him? He's not viewed as a victim because now they're coming after his assets. I think Frank
but
Luntz
they
is
haven't
reading
put
this
that on
incorrectly.
camera yet. And
I know.
Even now, it remains
is that
kind
gonna,
of
but is that going to
court
help?
Judgment type of stuff.
Is that going to help?
I think it will.
No, not
Let's
at all.
go to Ron and Greeley. Ron, you're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning, Ron.
Good morning. Wow, what a conversation that is sparked on this nice snowy day. But you know what? If we just go back to the election and the rigged election, and Bill has his arguments about no proof. If all of this was proven back then, none of this, everything forward is absolutely irrelevant because it would never have happened. Is that correct? Do we agree on that?
I'm not to your point. Walk that through me again. So you're saying that if they prove the election fraud, this wouldn't have happened?
Yeah, and Trump was president. Not everything that's happened is irrelevant because it would have never happened. Correct? Just humor me.
The national ones would not have. The state ones may have because Leticia James is not beholden to the Department of Justice, nor is Fani Willis in Georgia because they're local elections, not national. So that may or may not be different. But the Jack Smith stuff absolutely would go away.
Okay, yeah. I mean, because we don't even know if she would have been able to do it because she would have been president.
You're right. Yep, that's exactly what I forgot about that. The Office of Legal Counsel and DOJ directives that you cannot indict a sitting president. So you're correct. Even the state ones would have to be put on pause, which is why Alvin Bragg didn't file the business fraud one beforehand. That's right. You're correct. Thank you. I appreciate that.
That's cool. So anyway, because as far as everybody's wanting proof, the courts did not accept the proof that was given.
What do you mean by
now,
that?
when you have pictures, and while I was on hold, I'm surfing. Dinesh D'Souza has a movie coming out that he has actual proof that of mules, 2,000 mules that were delivering ballots in mailboxes.
Actually, Dinesh D'Souza has no proof of fraud. And the only reason I know that for certain is because on these airwaves on 710 KNUS, he was asked the direct question about 2,000 mules. He was on the air and asked directly, do you have any proof of a single fraudulent ballot that was cast? And he said, no, he doesn't. So he doesn't have proof of a single fraudulent ballot.
Right. Which makes this so brilliant on the Democrat side. I mean, it's actually brilliant because you're right. You can't see what that was, but you can see that there are people putting more than one ballot in mailboxes.
Which is legal in some areas. You can carry up to 4. You can carry up to 4 in Colorado.
Well, these guys aren't carrying 4. I mean, there was a picture of this one guy. He had like at least maybe. I mean, I think it was well over 50 to 100
but
that
then
he
again,
was dropping in this mailbox.
Dinesh D'Souza doesn't have a film of 2 people returning to the same box twice, 2 people dropping off ballots twice, and he also doesn't have any proof of actual fraud. So there's no fraud there.
To Bill and Ron, I think there's a fair critique of whether or not there's a clear accountability when it comes to these ballots being dropped off. And I asked Wayne Williams about this one time. I said, Wayne, how do you know somebody didn't drop off 5 ballots? He goes, Jeff, we have no idea. And I said, okay, so if you don't know if someone dropped off 5 ballots, you don't know if someone dropped off 10 ballots. And he's like, no, we don't. And if you don't know if someone dropped off 10 ballots, you don't know if they dropped off 50 ballots, to your point. They have cameras there, but there's nobody watching them all the time to see this stuff. And so there's a fair critique that the system itself is not that clear.
Yeah, but you never in that entire example said fraudulent ballots. That's different.
Well, because it's like I said, it's very brilliant that you can't prove it. I mean, it is these guys that come up with this stuff, they give it deep thought. And they say, you know what? They'll never be able to prove it.
And how do you know this?
We could do this all day long. Because
Ron, how do you know this?
You just said it. They can't prove it.
I know, but see, Ron, here's the idea: is normally when people hear they can't prove the fraud, people assume, oh, well, fraud didn't occur. However, you heard that statement and you went, oh, they obviously can't prove it. You're still convinced of the fraud, lacking the proof. That's what I find interesting in this conversation. You're continually convinced of something that nobody can prove.
Well, I'm convinced that it all goes back to just like, OJ, they weren't able to prove it, but it doesn't mean it didn't happen, right? So
Okay.
it's
Fair
the
point.
same situation.
Okay,
It's
then
the
let's do
exact
this then.
same
Okay,
situation.
then this is the way. Then rather than going down this rabbit hole, this is the question that I'm going to ask. Fox News question. Fox News spent nearly $800 million paying Dominion. If Fox News could have proven anything about the election fraud, that lawsuit goes away. Why did Fox News not provide the proof that you feel is so self-evident? Can you help me understand that?
Well, I think that the problem goes bigger and deeper than that, because there were people that had computers that were able to prove, because it's like a fingerprint or something. When somebody sends something from a computer, you can zero in on it. And they were able to zero in on a lot of questionable things. Now, once again, the proof is what you need as proof to convince you is not going to be as strict and high as it will other people. They're going to say, you know what? I don't need it.
Well,
I believe it already.
Well, that
And
should be an
when you
issue.
have
Hang on a sec,
picture-
Ron. That should be an issue. If people don't need proof to believe something, that should stop you in your
No, I
tracks
didn't
right
say-
there.
no,
that should stop you. Now,
no,
hang on a
no.
sec.
I
Now,
never said
hang on
that.
a sec. Now, I understand your idea. Oh, these people have these computers, etc. Here's the problem with that, Ron. If Fox News could have walked in with all that computer information and whatever else you want to talk about, they could have argued that they are covering a legitimate story. They never once argued that they were covering a news story. If you want to talk about anomalies, you want to talk about uncertainties, things mathematically that shouldn't happen, things that are tied to certain computers, all of that proves that it is a legitimate news story. Fox News never argued that.
Ron,
Why?
I appreciate the call. Thanks so much, Ron from Greeley. His line will be open 303-696-1971. I'm going to bring us back around to the issue today, which is Leticia James and the $464 million bond. Bill, will you play the audio of Leticia James for me?
The president of the United States has complained that I'm engaging in some sort of political witch hunt, that I've got some personal vendetta against him, that I campaigned against him. That is not true.
This illegitimate president who sits in the White House. That president, because he's not my president, he's an illegitimate president. His days are numbered. His days are numbered.
We've got to get ready to mobilize, and we've got to get ready to agitate and irritate until victory is won, but more importantly, until Trump is defeated. We will all rise up and resist this man.
And ultimately, we'll bring him down.
This illegitimate president, I'm going to give you the same level of respect that you gave to President Obama, and that is absolutely no respect at all.
Donald Trump has got to go. Hey, hey. Ho, ho. Donald Trump has got to go. Hey, hey. Ho, ho. And the days of Donald Trump are numbered. Lock him up. Lock him up. Lock him up. Lock him up. Lock him up.
That is not true.
His days are numbered. Illegitimate president. Lock him up, and then claims that she never campaigned against him. Here's my question. We'll get to Janice. Is Janice still on the line, Bill?
Yes, she is.
Great. We'll get to Janice in Walsenburg. Is this a good moment for America when you have an attorney general who was so open about her role as attorney general of New York is going to be to lock him up? His days are numbered. He's an illegitimate president. She then gets into the office and she uses taxpayer resources to prosecute Donald Trump for something that, like we've had this conversation before. If she was prosecuting a lot of these guys on this common practice within real estate, there might be a different question, but goes after him, levies a $464 million fine against him that he has to get a bond for. There's real questions as to whether or not this even violates Amendment 8 of the Constitution, excessive fines. Is this a good moment for America? that we're in this position? Let's go to Janice in Walsenburg. Janice, you're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning, Janice.
Yeah, I was calling in about the New York juries, and there's this case of Mark Stein. I'm not sure whether you're familiar with him. He was a commentator, filled in for Rush Limbaugh sometimes.
Yeah, I remember Mark. Yeah, the British
and,
voice. Right.
Yeah. And he made supposedly a defamation statement about some fairly rich guy, I guess, and the guy sued him, and the New York jury awarded them a huge settlement of some kind. And what Mark said was actually the guy's own words, a true statement. So I actually believe that the New York juries are very corrupt and biased. So, don't.
Yeah.
And like
Janice,
Mark Phillips, how it was in Colorado.
Janice, do you think that this is good for America where we are right now? Do you think that Leticia, the Attorney General of New York, gosh, it's Monday morning. Good morning, everybody. Leticia James, Attorney General of New York, do you think she fairly prosecuted Donald Trump, that this is good that he was held to account, or do you think that this is political lawfare and this is bad for America?
Oh, absolutely political lawfare. They scrounged around and found this obscure law, brought it up and passed it so he could be charged. Then they charged him only. And like real estate people do, or banks, they inflate their assets so they look good, but the bank does the research and gives you the loan on what they think your place is worth. I mean, Trump didn't do anything that everybody else that's selling real estate in the United States doesn't do.
So everybody does fraud? Janice, you believe everybody who's selling real estate is fraudulent? We should just accept it.
I don't know if you think it's fraud, but
no,
Trump might actually believe that his stuff is worth that much money. He does.
Janice, you said that everybody does it, and it's not. And you came to the conclusion it's not a big deal. So everybody in real estate commits fraud this way. And we should just know that every person dealing in commercial real estate or business real estate is fraudulent. That's your premise?
I don't call the word fraud. You like that word fraud.
Because that's what Trump did, Janice.
Only according to New York law, Bill. I think this is important too.
No,
this is not standard.
According to the judge.
This is not standard across the country where a state can intercede and insert themselves into private transactions and claim fraud.
Oh, that's weird. The rules from state to state are
never.
Different. That's weird. We don't ever do that in America, do we? We don't ever have.
Right?
We don't have states have different rules.
But Bill, you just said all across the country that people engage in this type of fraud.
No, that was Janice's statement. Janice said that everybody in real estate does this. So I asked her, does she think that they all commit fraud? Because this was fraudulent.
I don't think they commit fraud.
It's fraudulent in New York, but not everywhere else.
So you can make up any number you believe your place is worth and present it to the bank, and they'll come out. They'll send a guy out to assess it, or they'll come out themselves, and they decide. You don't get to. They don't take your statement of what you think your place is worth. Nobody does.
Well, the banks did.
But I might think it's worth a lot of people inflate their money, their place way out of sight.
Do you do that? Who do you have friends that do that? I mean, how many of your friends? How many friends triple the amount of square footage that their place is worth in order to get a
well,
loan?
I don't know about tripling
but that's what
footage,
Trump did. Trump tripled the square footage of his condo. He also claimed a business that was not profitable was making millions. This isn't about fudging numbers. This is about lying. And I understand if you're okay with that. Just say you are. Say I'm okay with everybody involved in commercial real estate and business real estate being fraudulent. That's fine. If that's how we want to move forward, fine. Just own it. That's all I'm asking for here.
Oh, I don't know. This is pretty scary.
I agree.
Lots of people.
I agree. This is very scary.
I don't know. I know the details there that you're bringing up. Maybe there was some fraud, but damn.
Yes, damn. 3 times.
Million?
Because he claimed a property that was losing millions was making millions. He claimed properties were 3 times their size. Again, if Trump thinks that Mar-a-Lago is so undervalued, why is he having a problem getting the bond? I've been told by callers and texters it's worth more than $1 billion. If it's worth more than $1 billion, he can get the bond simply by putting up Mar-a-Lago. But he can't
Do you
get
think
it.
these banks, Bill, do you think these banks trust the legal system in order to put up the bond?
I don't think these banks trust Trump. That's what I think.
Well, they did. They did early on. That's why you have no crime. You have no victim in this case.
Yes,
they
you
totally
do.
trusted
Yes,
Trump.
you do have a victim.
They
It's
absolutely trusted Trump and were willing to give him the loan.
Yeah.
And they got paid back.
And
And,
they found out he lied
even
to them.
Deutsche Bank was like, we didn't have any problem with this.
And they
it was
found
the
out-
state of New York that inserted himself into
Hang on
this
a sec.
relationship.
Couple of things. The banks have found out that Trump lies to them about valuations. They might just be a little more skeptical, giving him money based on property valuations, since it's now been proven that he lied. The other part is this idea of no harm and no victim is crap, because the banks don't have unlimited resources. The resources that Trump took by fraudulently claiming that his properties were worth more denied legitimate lenders access to that capital. If you had a business that Deutsche Bank denied you tens of millions of dollars because they had loaned out the giant pile of money to Trump because he lied about it, you'd be pissed.
Oh
You'd be
my
pissed.
gosh, Bill, you're trying to find a victim over under a corner.
No, I know.
over
I'm telling you how it works.
If Deutsche
This is how it
Bank
works.
was hurt so bad by this, Deutsche Bank should have sued Donald Trump, and
Again,
they didn't.
You're not paying attention to my words. I didn't say
I
Deutsche
am.
Bank being
Are you
hurt.
saying
I'm
somebody
saying,
else
yes,
somewhere didn't
potential
get
lenders.
a loan that they should have gotten?
No, potential lenders were robbed of capital at that point. That's part of the issue.
Then who was it?
Okay,
who was the
so what about
potential
all
lender
those
that
student
showed up?
loans?
I don't know. I don't have the books in front of me for Deutsche
Because
Bank's
there
loans.
was no potential.
How do you
All right.
know? I mean, that's the thing is you
Because
don't
they
think,
didn't show up.
you didn't think anybody else came to Deutsche Bank that entire time and asked for more money. Nobody asked. Only Donald Trump was the only person asking for
But
money.
that
He
victim
was the
didn't
only
show
one.
up in this trial.
He was the only one. No, but the issue is you're talking about victims. I'm talking. That's robbing of capital. It's taking the opportunity cost away. It's not part of the crime that happened in New York. The crime in New York is fraud.
All right, Janice, I appreciate it. Welcome to the Jeff and Bill Show. It's where we throw a topic out there and then watch a conservative and independent debate back and forth.
Grab a seatbelt and a helmet. This is fun.
And like I said, it might be cold outside. It ain't cold on this radio program. All right. We all want a kinder, gentler way to experience wellness and to overcome pain. I'm thriving and fighting back my workout soreness. By the way, 9 straight weeks of working out today. I was super proud of that. I don't think I've ever gone this far since I was like in high school working out this much. And a lot of it's due to UltraCur. UltraCur is a patented, non-prescription natural capsule that works fast. Surveys show that 50% of people using UltraCur find relief within 48 hours, and half of those within 2 hours. Experience UltraCur for free. Go to any Denver Metro natural grocers and ask for the health coach or the vitamin manager for your free 3-day trial of UltraCur. UltraCur is fueled by a patented technology to give you the true edge to support your peak wellness, energy, and active lifestyle. If you've tried everything without much success, even other natural curcumin products, you owe it to yourself to try UltraCur today. UltraCur gives you unique control over your daily wellness. It's gentle on your stomach, and it's a natural antioxidant. Get curious, Denver. Head to Natural Grocers, grab your free 3-day UltraCur trial with no strings attached. Wondering about the research? You can get the lowdown at getultranow.com. That's getultranow.com. We'll continue with your calls and texts. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710, KNUS.
At this hour in Berlin, I'm Trent Murray, and here are the top stories we're following. 2 crew members on board an American cruise ship have died following a, quote, on-board incident in the ship's engineering compartment. Holland America said the incident happened while the vessel was at Half Moon Cay in the Bahamas, saying the cause of the accident is being investigated and other crew members are being offered counselling. The crew members were working on board the New Amsterdam ship, which had set sail out of Fort Lauderdale on March 16 for a 7-night trip. Russian authorities have charged 4 men they say were responsible for a terrorist attack that killed at least 137 people. Prosecutors say the men stormed the Crocus City Music Hall on Friday night and began shooting concert goers before setting the building alight and fleeing. Islamic State, or ISIS, has claimed responsibility for the attack, which came just 2 weeks after the US Embassy in Moscow issued a public safety alert warning of the heightened risk of extremist groups targeting entertainment venues inside of Russia. Space forecasters have issued a rare geomagnetic storm watch, saying a solar flare could interfere with radio transmissions here on Earth. Experts say there's no reason for the public to be concerned, with systems in place to manage the effects of the flare. And that's what you need to know at this hour. I'm Trent Murray in Berlin on Salem News Channel.
Text messages filling in, phone lines full. Let's go to the phones here. And then we'll get to Blake in just a second. Let's go to Frank in Evergreen. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning, Frank.
Hey, good morning. Awesome show today. Billy, where's your proof? How do you know Deutsche Bank didn't make more money because Trump became their customer?
That's not the argument that I made. I said that.
You said
no. What I said was this. I said, hang on.
Proof.
What I
Everybody else got to have proof. Why
hold
not
on.
you?
Hold on. This is the opportunity cost. The opportunity cost of Donald Trump falsifying records and getting loans that were larger than he was entitled to takes that capital away from other potential loans. Now, yes, you're right, Frank. You are right, Frank, that I am assuming that a bank as large as Deutsche Bank got more loan requests. You're right. I'm assuming they got more loan requests.
I have to have proof all the time, and you don't.
No, I'm saying that's the opportunity cost, Frank.
The whole thing is, Billy.
Oh, please tell me.
The whole thing is, we're never going to be able to talk about what a great president Donald Trump was and what a terrible president Biden is. This is like Mean Girls, and I didn't even see the movie, but I've got daughters, so I kind of understand the concept. It's just
Okay.
mean girls. They're all just being mean to each other, and with no really rationale. I mean, it's just all noise, and this is exactly what the Democrats want, and that's what we're giving them.
Frank, I appreciate the call. Thanks so much. Let's check in on the news with Blake Olson. Blake, what are you working on?
All right, ice, baby. Plenty of ice out there. Watch the roads this morning. And Boeing's top man is stepping down following a plane full of negative stories and that door panel blowing off, of course. And another interesting one, say it ain't so. Shohei Ohtani allegedly gambling. He's going to meet with the media today. So,
man, after all,
that could
does
turn
he
into a
need
big
to
time.
gamble for?
Right.
I mean,
well,
seriously.
evidently it's
What
his
does he have, $1
interpreter.
billion?
So, oh my goodness, right? It doesn't make any sense. Who knows? We'll find out at the top of the hour.
Thanks, Blake. Blake will be back just in about 15, 20 minutes. Give us the full news rundown. All right, Bill, who else do we have on the line there?
Now we're going to talk to Elena. Elena from Aurora.
Elena
Morning.
from Aurora. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Good morning.
Good morning.
All right. So
Yeah.
I don't know which one of you is who, but one of you is implying that Deutsche Bank hires idiots to do their valuations and their lending. I don't know which one of you was that.
I don't think anybody here
has
has claimed that Deutsche Bank hires idiots. I don't think anybody said that on the air. But
I think
continue.
My point was that they
I said implying.
Tell me, what do you mean by implying? Deutsche Bank took Donald Trump's value.
That they didn't know what they were doing. Banks don't take an individual's word for what they're worth. They do their own due diligence. Every bank does that. The bank as large as Deutsche Bank.
Not in this case.
Not in this case. They didn't do any due diligence.
Nope, not at all.
They
And in fact,
wanted to do. In other words,
there was
they
no
wanted
crime.
to do
Hang on.
business
Wait,
with
hang
the
on, Jeff.
brand. In other words, they wanted to do business so badly with the brand that they were willing to risk their capital and their
I understand what you're saying, Elena, but here's the thing: is the testimony from Deutsche Bank officials is as follows. They took Donald Trump's word on the evaluations. They admit that they should have done their own evaluation. However, just because Deutsche Bank didn't do their own evaluation doesn't mean that Donald Trump didn't commit fraud. Donald Trump can still be lying to Deutsche Bank about the values of the property, and Deutsche Bank can still not check. It still means Donald Trump lied. Because Deutsche Bank didn't check, it doesn't give Donald Trump a get-out-of-jail-free card. That's what how do we get to that point?
Okay. I understand what you're saying. So in other words, so now they're going to, they put this incredible fine on him. And who's that fine going to go to? Who is that fine going to go to? Is it going to go to Deutsche Bank? Because they would be the only victim here, except that they made millions off of lending to Donald Trump and didn't lose a penny. So where's that money going to go? It is personal property seizure is what it is. Yep. And it's what happens in communist regimes. And you know what? When a communist regime is coming in, they don't really go after the little people. They go after the big controversial figure that everybody loves to hate because they have so much. And everyone that is filled with envy and jealousy loves to hate that person. Okay? And they start there, but it doesn't stop there. And everybody who's cheering now, their cheers are going to go silent and they're going to turn into cries when it comes down and it trickles down to them.
Elena from Aurora, I appreciate the call.
Yeah,
there's a lot that I agree
can
with
see.
you on
Anybody
that.
that's out there lying and committing fraud has got to be very, very scared. I get it.
This is
very
scary.
Scary fraud.
I agree with her comparison that this looks a lot like communists.
Yeah, the thing is though
Russia
that she assumes there's no crime, that she's okay with the lying and the fraud. That's okay. She can make that assumption, but that's where she started with, was that this is okay. What Donald Trump did is perfectly okay. So okay, fine. If you think it's okay, great. Go right ahead. Then someone else lies to you and commits fraud with you, go right ahead. Fine. Don't complain then.
That's what the argument against Donald Trump does. It takes this thing that, where there's no victim. He says, because he leveled fraud, which, as they've shown out is the practice that Donald Trump engaged with was pretty common in commercial real estate.
No, it isn't.
We're going to claim that as
isn't.
fraud.
No, it isn't, Jeff. That is incorrect.
It is.
No, it isn't.
It is, absolutely.
No, commercial real estate does not usually triple the square footage of their properties in order to get a loan. Commercial real estate does not say that a property losing millions is making millions. That's the difference. Everybody thinks
you're doing a word change here. Okay?
No, I'm doing the crimey
idea
things.
that somebody
What did he
applying
do?
for a loan wants to make their assets look as nice as possible is a common practice. The idea of tripling, you go off into that area.
That's what Trump did. So this is the problem, is everybody's whitewashing what he did, as if he just went, I think this property is worth a little bit more.
And Bill,
he lied about
Leticia
the property.
James was out there regularly prosecuting these guys, if Leticia James was regularly prosecuting these guys, and you had no checks, and banks were losing money, and there were all these victims, and Leticia James came in as this great savior of the little guy and the banks because of this great fraud that takes place in commercial real estate, I might believe it.
So as long as we have no
political prosecution, it's pure political prosecution.
So no, I've refuted that the entire time.
Political opponent and take away his property. We're so out of time right now.
So I guess if there's no victim, we can do the crime.
2 hours.
We can do the crime if there's no victim. So drunk driving is okay as long as you don't hit anybody. It's okay. Good to know.
Oh my gosh! And then you jump.
Good
over
to know.
that.
No, I'm just looking for crimes that have no victims. There's one, because you said there's no victim here. So as long as we can say there's no victim, we should be able to do it.
No.
Cool.
That's
fine.
That's not a fair equation.
I see how that is. Yes, it is.
We've got to get to our news and update. We'll get to your calls and texts. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
Great text here from 0069. I underwrite consumer and commercial property. Here's how it works. We take the application and you start off what you think said collateral is valued at. 95% of the applications have way overvalued their collateral. Is this fraud? It's the bank's responsibility to value the collateral cash flow to their policy guidelines. 95% of people who apply for these loans should be tossed in jail for fraud. Wow. And by the way, I don't like Trump. So interesting. Good text message there for somebody who deals with this. All right, we're going to get into squatters and squatters' rights. When we come back, you're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
Spicy hot morning on the radio program. If you missed any of it, the last 2 hours have been dedicated to taking your calls and texts on this $464 million bond that Donald Trump's got to deliver today. Is it right that he's being prosecuted? Did he violate the law? Is it a good thing that Leticia James did? Or is this political prosecution? Is this akin to what takes place in Soviet Union Russia or communist China? We've had a lot of fun with that. We're going to get to maybe one or two more calls, and then I want to talk about the squatters' rights issue that's going to bubble up here. But good morning. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show on 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights, hottest takes to kickstart your day. It's a snowy, cold day here in Colorado, but We're going to gear up for a whole nother hour of engaging discussions, critical analysis, most importantly, your calls and texts, and they have been flowing in, which is just absolutely fantastic. That's the way we love this show. You won't find any other show like this in Denver, Colorado, where your voice is heard loud and clear. So grab your coffee and let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. Let's go to Blake Olson with the news. Good morning, Blake.
Morning, Jeff. 20 and cloudy in Denver, expecting highs in the 30s today, and the 7-10 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story, icy conditions on the roads. CDOT says be extremely careful. Don't drive unless you have to. And please check out your flights before you head to DIA if you have something scheduled there. It could be delayed. Boeing CEO is stepping down. Dave Calhoun departing at the end of the year. Then the announcement comes along with word that several other senior leaders have also decided to part ways with Boeing in the wake of a slew of negative stories, starting with a door panel blowing out on a Boeing 737 MAX plane in January. The deadline is here for Donald Trump to pay $500 million bond in his New York civil fraud case, of course. In the former president, if he is unable to secure the bond, the New York Attorney General Leticia James and her staff may start the process of seizing Trump's assets. David Cohen, civil rights attorney.
Leticia James, Attorney General, ran on a platform of getting Donald Trump, promising people she would get Donald Trump. He's a private citizen who wasn't even under investigation at the time. We don't permit that kind of thing. We see the same thing with Alvin Bragg in the district attorney's office in New York, and it plays to people's worst instincts. But lawyers should be standing up and speaking out against this, no matter who the client is.
Now, Marco Rubio telling ABC that he would definitely run for vice president with Trump, even though he and the former president have had their issues in the past. But he brings up a great point here on ABC on Sunday.
Friends do not let friends vote for con artists. You know I could have gone on. I could have played more.
But so why didn't you play the clip of Kamala Harris basically insinuating that Joe Biden was a segregationist on the debate stage, and she's now his vice president?
We play that, but let me ask you.
Well, you didn't play it now.
That was then.
Speaking of Harris, the Biden administration is welcoming an Israeli delegation to the White House for high-level meetings today. President Biden invited a team of officials to Washington during a recent phone call with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The talks come as the U.S. has been urging Israel to scale back plans for a major offensive that could put Palestinian civilians at risk in Rafah. Say it ain't so, show. Dodgers superstar Shohei Ohtani is set to address the media today for the first time since allegations of illegal gambling and theft involving his former interpreter surfaced. Major League Baseball says it started a formal investigation into the gambling accusations. The interpreter is accused of receiving more than $4.5 million from the Dodgers superstar to pay off gambling debts he made with an illegal bookie. It is 19 in Lakewood, 20 in Littleton, 21 in Denver. The CU Buffs NCAA tournament run comes to an end. Marquette beat CU 81-77.
And the Colorado Buffaloes are going back to the Sweet 16 for the second year in a row.
But the CU women's team, they advanced. They run past Kansas State 63-50 Sunday. And as you heard, move on to the Sweet 16. If Iowa wins tonight, they take on Caitlin Clark on Saturday. That should be a lot of fun. The Grizzlies and the Nuggets tonight at Ball Arena. The Avs, they've won 9 straight, 5-4 overtime victory over the Penguins. Jeff and Bill continue on this Monday morning. Be careful out there. Icy roads. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Your 710 5-day forecast, a winter weather advisory through mid-morning. Lingering areas of snow showers possible, especially early in the day. Quite cold. We're only going to make the 30s with a cold north wind Gusty at times. Very cold tonight for this time of year, low to mid-teens. Partly cloudy Tuesday, maybe a snow shower in the afternoon, highs low 40s. Few snow showers, 20s Tuesday night. Partly cloudy and warmer and dry Wednesday and Thursday. Clouding up Friday, maybe some showers. Meteorologist Don Day on 710 KNUS.
All right, let's continue. Frank and Golden, you're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning, Frank.
Hey, gang. Hey, it's the artist formerly known as Frank. I'm Francis. Remember that's
right. We
that's right.
That in there, Francis.
That's okay. Yeah. Hey.
Good morning.
Hey, there's that old saying about you follow the money kind of thing. I think with Donald Trump, the way you actually view him is you follow the ego. And here's my take on this: is that I don't think Donald Trump wants to get the appeals bond up to because there's no legal error in the judgment or the decision that came down, the judgment against him. Mm-hmm. He doesn't have a basis to appeal it. And so he would rather, and he could obviously put up an appeals bond if he wanted to, like Billy was pointing out, like what is Mar-a-Lago worth? What are some of these other assets worth? I think they're worth what he could easily collateralize to get the bond up, but he doesn't want to do that. He would rather be a victim. And that's exactly so he's doubling down on Leticia James having to execute on the judgment and start leaning his properties. And that's because that's what his electorate, what the cult loves, is they want him to be a victim. It's so amazing to me that this happens because I think most Trump supporters, I mean, by and large, when I call the cult, and I don't put you in that, Jeff, at all, because you think clearly about this, but they all consider themselves, they view themselves as kind of rugged individualists or something like that. And they absolutely hide behind this persona that Trump has. And it's the opposite of being a rugged individualist. He's just basically an ego in a suit that takes on whatever persona he can to get the adulation, the worship. And that's what's going on here. I mean,
Francis, I got a question though. If 99 indictments by an unhinged, prosecutors utilizing lawfare to go after political opponents. I understand that some people can claim victims, but I don't know another business guy that would be willing to withstand that and continue to run for president. Because I think part of what the calculus on the left is if we do this, anybody out there with financial means to be able to run for president is going to look at this and go, I don't want to put my family through this. I understand that there might be a victimhood mentality in some cases, but 99 indictments and having your entire fortune on at stake, I just see that as a legitimate, critique of what the left is doing here.
Oh, I you know what, Jeff? I 100% agree with you because I do think that he's obviously targeted by the left, and so there is, I think that is unfair. The problem is, it's like a tennis match. The ball's back in Trump's court. Did he do what they are charging him with? And the answer is yes, he did. And not everybody does this, real estate nonsense. I mean, look, everybody, I'm sure, overvalues all these various real estate moguls and commercial property, overvalue their property. But nobody does it to a point where it's 3 times the square footage. That's overt fraud. What I think is going on here, too, is that, look, I don't even know if Donald Trump knew that that's how they were valuing his properties, that his minions were doing that. The problem here is, to me, that he surrounds himself with minions that do that because they're all comfortable with what he does and how he does it. And so it's kind of like moths to the flame. If you have somebody, a boss, who basically is perfectly okay committing fraud, then you don't have any problem putting on paper fraud. I don't know if Donald Trump knew they were doing that. I think he even kind of testified that he didn't. He wasn't sure how those numbers came up. But the bottom line is he's captain of the ship. He's responsible.
Francis, I appreciate the call. Thanks so much. We've been on this for a few hours now. So if you missed any of it, go back to the podcast, 710knus.com, 710knus.com. I want to switch gears here and get into the squatters' rights issues, because this is a developing issue that we may all need to be aware of. You may have seen this video of a woman having to deal with two squatters in the state of New York that had occupied property that belonged to her parents, and she was trying to sell it. It was property worth about $1 million, and squatters had taken over it. She went to go try to get them out of it. Once she got them out of the house, she quickly had a locksmith change the locks. The squatters came back in, kicked in the front door to her house, and then she was arrested by police because everyone at this point was calling 911, and there's a news station that was following this. So the guy kicks in the door, everybody calls 911, police show up, and they arrest the homeowner for improper eviction. And what is coming to light now is a series of stories of how homes are being invaded by squatters. Here's from the New York Post. Just over the weekend, thousands of homes across America are being invaded by squatters who move in and legally live rent-free. And amazingly, there's no way for homeowners or police to evict them. In Atlanta, the problem is so bad, residents are too afraid to leave for a vacation, for fear of returning to an unwanted visitor or even finding their home converted into an ad hoc strip club. However, squatting isn't as simple as turning up to someone's home and pushing in your way. This has led to a host of internet forums and dark web pages devoted to the subject of operating a dummies guide to getting into someone else's house and establishing a right to live there. I don't know if you know this, but we have a housing crisis in this country, someone told the Post, and it's only getting worse. People are going to do what they have to do. You can't stop it. This is just amazing. Bill, I'd heard of squatters, kind of like one-off cases of apartment owners, landlords having to deal with squatters, but it growing to this level.
Yeah, because people can't get homes.
Fascinating.
Oh, yeah. And part of it is because people feel that they're never going to be able to get to a home, afford a home, or anything else. And so they will take extreme measures. And it's not right. It's not correct. But it is a symptom of what is going on. It's also a symptom of our screwed up legal system, because inside of the article that you were talking about is the explanation about why you can't get squatters out is based on, and I will use the words in the article, legitimate tenants. These people that just show up and break into your house and change the locks, the person that we're dealing with in New York, that's not a legitimate tenant.
Right.
That's the issue that I have. And here's the problem I have with how we are looking at the law and adjudicating this. Those people are not legit tenants. I understand why the squatters laws came about. And the issue was that your landlord would come up and say, hey, I'm raising the rent 300%. You need to be out in a week.
Right.
That was the issue.
Just you came home from work and your stuff was on the front porch.
Exactly. Yeah, that we're just doing this. So I understand why that's there. However, if the individual involved has not paid the landlord rent, it seems to me to not be an arrangement for rental property. It seems to me at that point, you're breaking and entering and you're a criminal. And that's the part that I have a real hard part, wrap my head around. We had the video last week of the Venezuelan man, or wasn't it? Yeah, that did.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, they talked about,
TikTok
hey,
influencer.
This is how you do it. You do it this way. The issue being that is technically how our laws are written at this point, and it is stupid. We should be going back and changing those laws right now. And eventually, you should be looking at the laws like, if they're not a legitimate tenant, when were they a tenant at this property? Because a tenant requires payment. It requires some sort of a payment structure to the landlord. If you're not paying the landlord, I don't care if you're paying utilities. I don't care if you're mowing the lawn. Don't care. You're not a tenant. And to me, you then don't get squatters' rights. But the problem we have is, it's the idea of, hey, I'm here now. Now it's mine. I don't understand.
They're coming up with ways to really get around these laws or use them to their benefit. One occupation artist said that they place a for sale or rent sign on the property with a phone number attached to a burner cell phone. If there's no response, then the home is unmonitored and primed for possession. Many squatters wade through real estate listings on sites like Zillow and Trulia to look for homes that have been on the market for extended periods without any activity and then peruse them in person. One squatter, I found this really interesting. One squatter suggests placing an orange cone in the driveway of the home and coming back a week later to see if it's moved.
Yeah. And the issue for me, though, is that in all of this process, and this is where I need to look at law enforcement, and I need to look at district attorneys and other people charging these crimes. Everything that I've seen, I don't know everything about squatters' rights. I don't know everything about the law, but everything seems to be written into the idea of legitimate tenants. A person that is there legitimately.
Right. The law is not set for illegal immigrants.
And if you, not illegal, I don't care about illegal immigrants. I'm just saying illegal. I don't care if you're an American citizen. I don't care if you're a Mexican citizen. I don't care if you're a Chinese citizen or a Russian citizen. Don't care. If you break into the home and say, now that I'm inside this front door, this is mine. I'm now going to set up utilities and water, and I'm going to change the locks and even install a new door and all this stuff. Not your house. That's the issue. The illegality, the whether or not the person's in the country legally or illegally to me is completely and totally irrelevant. What I have an issue with is the filter we have on this idea that because someone can break through your front door and if they get to stay inside for a certain amount of time, the house is now theirs. Seriously, that's the way that we're going to work this thing out? Come on. That wasn't the intent of the law. That wasn't the purpose of the law. And everyone knows that.
The reason I wanted to bring this up on the radio show today was, one, I want to make sure people know about this. So if you own property, I think the one way you can try to help address this is you got to visit that thing weekly.
That or alligators. Really hungry alligators. Just
in the house.
Yes.
I mean, open the door and
hippopotamus
and alligators.
Exactly. A couple people losing.
Jumanji in here.
A couple of people breaking in and they lose a couple of appendages. They didn't know we're breaking. There you go. It's a theory. It's just a theory. Don't actually follow it.
I want to make sure people know about this because I think this is going to be a growing issue twofold. One, with the illegal immigration that our state's facing, the number of people coming in. And there's examples of this. There's examples of people using TikTok to explain to other illegal immigrants how you can take advantage of these kind of loopholes in the law. So we're going to face it in that. And then two, if there continues to be a housing crisis, people can't afford cost of everything going up. Everybody knows this statistic, $11,000 more to live just the same way you lived 2 years ago. You have to have $11,000 more today. That if you have those two factors, you're going to have people taking advantage of these kind of squatter rights. But then the real secondary reason I wanted to bring this up was I wanted to hear from anybody who's had to deal with this.
Yeah.
Whether it's a bad tenant that you tried to get out and it was really, really hard, or you had somebody that just took over your property. Did you have to deal with this? Give us a call, 303-696-1971, 303-696-1971. I saw over the weekend that a state rep here in Colorado wanted to strengthen tenants' rights. So make it even harder for landlords to get folks out of their properties. So we may be facing that down at the state capitol. So
that's spooky. And I think it's a great caution that you had there for people that are property owners and that concern. And I've had conversations with family friends that have vacation properties and rental properties, and they are terrified of this because, someone could in theory come in and set up residency and then they would lose the property. And some of them are even rethinking their contracts with things like Airbnb because they're like,
Yeah.
what if the person rents from Airbnb and then gets
And
to
then
come
doesn't
back?
leave.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. Or leaves and then comes back later and breaks in and knows it's just for rental and says, nope, now it's mine. Now they've been in there. Because was that original purchase of the Airbnb weekend, does that then establish that you're a tenant? That it's and they're worried about it. They're thinking that even if I let this person stay for 2 days, does that mean they're now a tenant? And now I have to go through all this other stuff in order to remove them.
All the headache. And
Yeah.
I don't know the fullness
either.
of the work that you have to do to try to get somebody out. So give us a call, 303-696-1971. 5311 did something on the text messages that's just totally inappropriate. And I need to bring this up here. She or he, I'm guessing it's a she, sent pictures of cookies she made.
Uh-oh.
And those are not in front of me right now.
Oh, that's not cool.
So it's just temptation.
That's not cool.
Right there on my computer screen. I can't access
mean.
that.
That's really mean.
Oatmeal white chocolate. Oh my gosh. Oatmeal white chocolate chip, coconut, and
Oh my God, look at
cranberry.
those. Yeah, why would you do that to us?
Come on.
Seems mean. Don't you love us?
The only way you're going to be in our good graces is if you send some of those to the station.
Yes. Well, yeah, I can be bribed sometimes. You've seen my ethics are
It's
very
a cold
malleable.
day outside.
Yes.
It's a cold day and there's warm cookies in somebody's kitchen and they're not in front of me.
Yeah, I know.
Oh,
You're
boy.
just teasing us.
Dems passed a law this year that makes it easier for people to be squatters. I'll have to look into that. This is a hilarious one. 7127. You think the yellow cone thing will work at the White House?
That's good. That is good.
There's a long history. This is from Tony in Denver. Tony called in earlier. We had a good conversation during the 6 o'clock hour. There's a long history of squatters' rights in the U.S. After all, that's how we stole the land from the natives in the first place. I'm not in favor of squatters, but understand the way they feel in an era of so much housing sitting empty with so much need for housing for poor folks. That's not the same.
Yeah. And we do have a caller. We've got Jim on the phone. So
Do we have Jim on the phone?
Jim. Yeah.
Jim,
Hey, Jim.
you're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning.
Hey, good morning. I did call, and I wanted to say that now is the time for the Native Americans who have been warehoused on reservations to take back their nation.
There you go. They could.
It's an interesting idea.
Implement the squatters' rights. There was a Babylon Bee article that said that's one way for Donald Trump to get back into the White House. Just implement his own squatter rights. Walk in.
Mm-hmm. And we do rely as landlords for the government to validate our real estate, our property contracts. And it's rather ironic that the government is providing pushback to Donald Trump with his real estate contracts. And we rely on the government to keep squatters out. And there's a big push-pull going on right now. And it is ironic that we want Donald Trump to be saved by the government in their contract validation process. And we also want the owners of property to be saved. But at the same time, you have taxpayers out there, and maybe we ought to go to a flat tax system so everybody can pay the same.
I like flat taxes. I appreciate the call.
Value.
Speaking of the kind of squatters in New York, here's what the law is in New York. Squatters in New York State can claim a legal right to remain on a property without the owner's permission after 10 years of living there. However, in New York City, a person only needs to be on the property for 30 days to claim squatter rights. If you go back and watch the video, which is too long for us to show here, of the woman that got arrested trying to get squatters out while the squatters got to stay there. Part of what she brings up is that it takes so long to get the process going. So then they're past 30 days already. So
it's the one thing we know, that the government moves swiftly and efficiently. Yes, that's the one thing. They're always a paragon of how quickly they move and respond. We know that, like, it's a common phrase here in America. Wow, you're just as fast as the government. Yes.
How does someone become a squatter? Some of the scenarios in which a person becomes a squatter include a tenant refusing to pay rent, a relative of a former owner refusing to leave the property, or even a stranger who entered the property and never left. I think that's the component, Bill, where I think you and I would agree, where we're like, why is that even allowed?
Yeah.
Like, I understand you can go to court and have a debate over a tenant refusing to pay or a relative of a former owner refusing to leave. That should all go to court. But some bro just shows up.
Yeah, the thing is,
like, I'm here.
How did this debate go in the legislature when they're doing this? Like, well, obviously people should just be able to show up at your house, break in, and then stay there. Like, wait, hold on. Do we need all of these things in the law? And I'm really mad at the people involved in the legislature that would vote for this. That you'd go, well, obviously this is okay, because if it is okay, then we probably could find some people in New York that would be happy to take over your domicile. They'd be more than happy because there are people looking for places to live. And if you think someone can just show up and break in and then have rights to the property, I would love to
Donald
test
Trump
that.
goes to
Let's test
Leticia
it.
James' apartment.
Yes, I know. Say I'm here. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah.
That would be
Ooh.
4D chess.
Yeah, that would be.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
We'll have to see if it happens by the end of the day.
I know. And I think, and what Leticia James is going to go after, that's going to be interesting. We never got to talk about that last hour, but I think that'll give us her
what does she
idea.
prioritize, and which golf club would she like to play?
And
in?
the issue for me, the issue isn't just a side note. The issue for me is whether or not she goes after cash or property. And that tells me how vindictive she is. And the only reason I say that is if she goes after cash, most of the times in these cases, you chase the cash. However, that impairs Donald Trump's ability to make payroll. And it really cripples his ability to operate the business. So in my opinion, if she's really, really vindictive, she goes after the cash.
You
If
think
this is
so?
more, if the
I would almost
properties,
put it in the other way.
no, because he can survive. If he loses the properties, the business
Yeah,
can
but
survive.
You saw what he refers to as properties.
Oh, I know, but that's why I think that she might go
He
after the
calls them
properties.
babies.
Oh yeah, but and it's
if
an
you
ego
have to
thing for
sell
him.
your property at a discounted rate to get cash in, and then you can't buy it back.
Well, thing is he doesn't have to sell it. It belongs to the government at that point. He had the opportunity to.
Oh, yeah.
And
But,
so that's the issue is
And then
he
Leticia
could
James
have
could sell it to
Yes.
Nancy Pelosi.
Yes, she can go and sell it to
Oh,
anybody.
that would get under
That's
Trump's
and so that to me, that's as emotional. But if she's really petty and vindictive, she could cripple him by going after the cash first. She seizes his bank accounts, and he's in real trouble. And so I want to look at how she's looking at this thing going forward, and I think that'll tell us a lot about how she's viewing this. And I think that may even pull back the idea of how political is this? We'll see. It's
so
fun, though.
how do you get rid of a squatter in the state of
No.
New York? A property owner must first send a 10-day eviction notice and then file a court complaint if the order is ignored. If it's approved by the judge, the owner can get a summons and have the sheriff evict the squatter. I wonder how much sheriffs really like doing that stuff.
Yeah.
I
It's gotta be
imagine
awful.
that's like,
I got a question.
I've got to spend my day dealing with these people.
I got a question for you, Jeff, here, and maybe you can help me with this because I'm really, and maybe listener, you can help me with this as well, because this is what I'm really confused about when we're talking about the squatters' rights and how they, for whatever reason, have a right to be in the home. And again, I am going after the illegal people in the home, whether or not they're American citizens or not. I'm not talking about a tenant who refuses to leave. That's, to me, a different conversation. I'm focused on the stories that we're hearing where people who don't live there break in and say, ha, no inside, it's now mine. Now, here's the help that I need. If you were at your home and someone was trying to break through a door or a window, you would be authorized to use force and in some cases deadly force.
That's right.
If you came home and found someone in your house stealing things and already there and trying to take stuff, your valuables,
Home invasion, right?
You could, again, in some instances, you can use force, and in some instances, and you should be able, you're authorized at that point if you find them in the home to use force, and in some cases, deadly force.
Right.
However, if they've been in that home a long enough time before you find them, all of a sudden now the power dynamic switches where they have the ability to shoot you for coming into their home. And I'm using the air quotes. I don't understand that. How, based on just the passage of time, property rights invert. It doesn't make any sense. Why is this what we do?
Play Florida's response to intruders.
Oh, yeah. Here it is. Here it is.
As to the person, we don't know which homeowner shot at him. I guess they think that
they did something wrong, which they did not. If somebody's breaking in your house, you're more than welcome to shoot them in Santa Rosa County. We prefer that you do, actually. So
I like that
whoever
part.
that was, you're not in trouble.
It's
Come
easier to
see us.
clean up.
We have a gun safety class we put on every other Saturday. And if you take that, you'll shoot a lot better, and hopefully you'll save the taxpayers money.
Ouch. But he makes a good
Or
point.
to go in the other way, being like, they come in and threaten you. You're welcome to shoot them. And by the way, it saves us money. So come to our gun shooting class on every other Saturday.
But if they're already in the home and they've been there for several days, they get to shoot you.
Shoot you.
That's crazy. That is crazy to think about.
So why does the law provide squatters with rights? The law was designed to help prevent long-term tenants from being evicted. Going back to New York City again, the law was partially made in response to vacant and abandoned buildings that were becoming a blight on the city. How can property owners protect themselves from squatters? Owners should avoid keeping any properties vacant for an extended period of time. They should also make sure the building is secure, has adequate lighting, and has surveillance cameras installed. This is really important. You put the cameras in the house.
Yeah, very important.
In the house. Like you go buy a Google little what are those called? Little Google cameras.
Oh yeah, you can get those. And if you have a home security system, some security systems will provide those internal cameras as well. So
yeah. Just put it right there at the front door. If a squatter does appear, owners should notify the police quickly before squatters' rights are established. So if this is going to become a bigger issue and you got properties out there, be careful. I would love to hear from folks that have had to deal with squatters. 303-696-1971, 303-696-1971, or text us on the 710 KNUS app. George Santos should have used squatter rights to keep his DC office.
Oh, that's good.
I am dumbfounded. All these people know right from wrong, and there's just a right and a wrong, and they do it anyways, and they have no repercussions.
You know, Catherine's on the line, and she's got some information for us, something that I didn't know. Catherine, how are you? Thanks for calling Jeff and Bill.
Good morning. I'm just on my way to work, but I just want to tell you, I think this is right. That's something they taught us during the CCW class is that if somebody was breaking in, you have to believe that they're going to commit a second crime in order to use deadly force. Now, you might want to check on that, but so just the event of breaking in isn't bad enough. You have to think they're going to assault you or do something else.
Yeah, that's called the Castle Doctrine in Colorado. Let me look that up.
Yeah.
So just breaking in your home while you're there is not.
Yeah. But
it's
you know,
crazy, isn't it? I don't want to hurt anybody, but this is crazy.
It is crazy, Catherine. And what do you think about the idea that in your home, if you went on vacation, let's say that you left for you got someone in your family came into a lot of money, and hey, Catherine, we are going to go on a 40-day cruise. And here we go, and they're going to take you around the world, and you're going to have the time of your life, and you show up back at your house, and someone else is behind that door, has changed the locks, and says, no, this house belongs to me right now, and the law favors them. How do we get to this place? What happened?
We're inverting reality.
Exactly. How did this happen?
So in Colorado, we do
living in fantasy, generation after generation.
Yeah.
Listen, I got to walk into work, but you guys research that, and I love your show.
I appreciate it. Hope you have a
thank
good day and be
very
safe out
nice.
there.
We do have the Castle Doctrine in Colorado. It's a legal principle that people have the right to absolute safety while in their homes, even if the intruder meant no harm. The Make My Day law protects occupants from both criminal and civil liability as long as they reasonably believe that the intruder meant to harm. When you go through your concealed carry class, and to Catherine's point, they're basically like, you will probably get sued if you shoot somebody. So it is best, always best to make sure it's a last resort type of thing. Never shoot first. And just hope that, it works out legally. Use every possible last resort prior to that, because in any case, you're likely to be sued. So we've got to get to Blake Olson with the news in just a second. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710, KNUS.
At this hour in Berlin, I'm Trent Murray, and here are the top stories we're following. Space forecasters have issued a rare geomagnetic storm watch, saying a solar flare could interfere with radio transmissions here on Earth. Scientists from the Space Weather Prediction Center, which is based in Boulder, Colorado, said an outburst of plasma from the sun could interrupt high-frequency radio transmissions like those used on aircraft. Experts say there's no reason for the public to be concerned, with systems in place to manage the effects of the flare. The Philadelphia Police Department is seeing success in more recruits passing the entry physical fitness exam. It's all thanks to a new law that's changed the standards. Haley Bianco has the details.
In Philadelphia, the city lowered requirements for the entry physical exam at its police academy. Since the law took effect late last year in Philadelphia, 51% of people testing have passed the entry physical exam, compared with 36% previously. It's part of a broader effort nationally to reevaluate policies that keep applicants out of the job pool amid a hiring crisis. To close the gap, policies on tattoos, previous drug use, physical fitness, and college credits are all being reconsidered. Several states have expanded eligibility to non-citizens, while others have changed the minimum age of officers to 18.
And that's what you need to know at this hour. I'm Trent Murray in Berlin on Salem News Channel.
Good morning, Denver. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show. We're going to check in on the news with Blake Olson. Blake, what are you working on for us?
Well, it's a slushy, icy morning, so the weather is causing some problems for some people. So make sure that you drive slowly and carefully, and check out the internet before you head out to DIA if you have a flight or you're waiting for one to come in. There are some challenges there as well. And Marco Rubio bringing up a great point on ABC. You have to love any pushback against the mainstream media is a good thing. So we'll hear from that.
I agree with that.
Marco Rubio says he'll run, he'd run for vice president if asked.
I don't think that's happening.
No,
I don't
so.
see it.
Yeah.
I don't get what the
I don't
benefit is to Trump to have Marco
Neither do
Rubio.
I.
He's going to win Florida no matter what.
Yeah.
JD Vance seems like that could be interesting because he's going to get Ohio.
Yeah.
Christy Nome
Yeah.
would be interesting, but
Possibility.
what does South Dakota do? I like Tulsi Gabbard because I like the independent hook where you go, here's a person that was, just a few years ago, a Democrat. She serves in the military. Is she as pro-life as we want her to be? No. But she's pretty solid, and she's a statesman. I've had her at the summit the last 2 years, and she's great to work with, very kind, loves to be around people.
Right.
I think she would be good. I just don't see the Marco Rubio thing.
If you go with someone from Florida, to me, I'm like, go with Byron Donalds. I mean, he's a fighter, and so I don't know. It's always when you look at the politics in the state, like you're talking about representing the state. So I don't know.
We were watching a documentary about Lincoln over the weekend, and these are people that are incredibly ambitious that get to that level, and the vice presidency is almost like a screeching halt to your political ambition. You're like the Queen of England. You don't do anything. You're just kind of there ceremonially.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. I mean, in the long run, I don't think it matters, does it? I don't even think it matters in the campaign. Maybe it does. I don't know. Maybe people are swayed by it in those certain states, but I don't think so.
I'm not going for Joe Biden. And then Kamala Harris showed up. Oh, man. That's a winning ticket.
Possible. Miracles can happen when you see things. Hey, speaking of Kamala, we will hear from the vice president coming up.
Oh, great. She read a map.
Exactly. Well, get your drone out. She'll help you out.
Now, any question? Did we have any clue as far as when she was reading the map? What choices she used as far as the crayons to color each one of the countries? I'm just curious what she used. I just don't.
That is a really good question.
Yeah.
One of my favorite comedian segments ever was Brian Regan on Dora the Explorer.
Oh, yeah.
When he goes first, in what family does Dora and the Explorer rhyme? It's like only the Kennedys, right? Dora the Explorer. And then, like who wrote the I'm a map, I'm a map, I'm a map, like that. It was like classic. Did you write the jingle today? Oh, shoot.
Right.
Yeah, I wrote it.
Yes, we got a new thing. Yes, sure we did.
I'm a map. I'm a map.
I love it. We'll talk to you at the top of the hour, guys.
Thank you, Blake.
Thanks,
Some
man.
enterprising conservative could do something around Kamala Harris and Dora the Explorer. If you don't know what we're talking about, wait till the top of the 9 o'clock news when you hear about Kamala Harris describing how she read a map. It's truly wonderful. We're talking about these squatters that have taken over thousands of homes in the United States, and even illegal immigrants doing videos on how to become a squatter and take over property. You combine that with the cost of living crisis that our country's facing, and you're going to this is going to be a bigger issue. Even a handful of mansions, New York Post reporting, have been taken over, including in Beverly Hills near LeBron James's home, and a $2 million home in Queens.
That's the one that surprises me is when we're doing the squatter thing. Why aren't we going after the expensive houses? I mean, of all the ones that you're going to do, if you're going to move in, Don't come to my neighborhood. I mean, if you're really going to do this thing, go big. I mean, what are you holding? What's holding you back? You're not paying for this thing anyway. Why wouldn't you get to play to the pool?
Among these kind of website forums among squatters, which ironically they can get access to the internet, but can't pay their rent. They talk about how there's a debate around that, Bill. There's some people that say go for the swimming pools and tennis courts and have a short-term enjoyment squatting in those. But others are like, no, go find the home that's like in the woods that hasn't been visited in years and you can live quietly there.
Oh, that's a good point.
And then there's like all this discussion about, do you try to trick the electric company that you have a fake lease and then turning on the electricity? You never intend to pay the bill anyways, but you can at least get some electricity for a while.
Yeah.
Water, all this stuff. I mean, it is.
Now, you would think
it's a wild issue.
You would think that if someone broke into the house and was a squatter and was in there illegally and then set up things like utilities, if they weren't paying the utilities, that would be a strike against them. But I understand that illegally, if they do establish utilities, it becomes a positive. Even if they don't pay, it shows they were trying to establish residency. That's how backwards this entire process is, that the person setting up the utilities never pays for it, but somehow then, they were intending to live there. No, they weren't. They didn't pay the bills. Last time I checked, no pay the bills, no live there. That's how it works in my house. If I didn't pay the bills, they'd come over and say, sir, and move me out. That's how it works. The bank would be very happy to take the house back. Yes, I know.
It's a two-tiered system of justice.
Yeah, and I'm always on the wrong side.
Right. Squatter, historically, this is an interesting text. Squatters historically had to show they made improvements on the land.
Yeah, they did that normally.
Is that not a requirement anymore?
I think the requirements.
I don't think there's anything.
No, I mean, not anymore. It is now. You just have to take care of, from what I understand. So that would be things like, did you mow the lawn? Did you shovel?
Right.
Did you act? The idea is, did you act like a homeowner? In many ways, I think this is almost like the cohabitation divorce laws that we had. That if a couple presents themselves as married, establishing mutual assets, establishing things. Common law marriage. And so establishing a mutual bank account or taking shared assets. You buy a car under two names. You rent a house under two names. That's presenting yourself to the public as a married couple. And I think that's where they took that idea from, that if you present yourself as the homeowner, well, then it's obviously yours because that's how it works.
And you're improving the property.
Yes. I mean, we remember in Friends when Joey's watching his friend's Porsche and then he pretended he had a Porsche for a while. It's the same thing. He could have just said, nope, sorry, my Porsche now. I mean, who would have known it would have worked out so much better for Joey that time?
It would have been much easier for him.
Exactly.
Than
Those boxes. Exactly.
Guys, for those of you with a full head of hair, congratulations. Studies show that one of the most attractive physical features is a full head of hair. Want to know the least attractive and most aging? Well, it's hair loss. No amount of car, house, or success can make up for that thinning or balding, as it leaves the greatest lasting physical impression. Doesn't have to be that way. Advanced Hair has the quick one-day solution for your hair loss. No more expensive pills or special shampoos, just your very own natural hair guaranteed to grow. And with Advanced Hair, your new hair can grow for life. Advanced Hair has improved tens of thousands of lives, including top radio personalities across the country. Did I mention your own natural hair begins to regrow the very next day? For your free consultation, call 720-459-HAIR. That's 720-459-HAIR. And if you qualify, get $250 off and 250 free hair grafts. AdvancedHair.com is the website. Go to advancedhair.com. We'll continue with your calls and texts. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710, KNUS.
All right, up at the top of the 9 o'clock hour, we're going to get into whether or not Ronna McDaniel is good for NBC. Chuck Todd and Stephen Hayes had a lot to say on the Sunday shows about her. My argument is that they're hazing her. She's not going to be accepted until she rejects Trump. That's what this is all about. But we'll have to get into more of that. So you're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
It's News Talk 710 KNUS.
Good morning, Denver. Mile High City, you've tuned in to the Jeff and Bill Show on 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights, hottest takes to kickstart your day. If you missed any of the show, we've been going and rocking this for 3 hours now. Go to 710knus.com, 710knus.com. We dived deep into this bond payment that Donald Trump's got to pony up $464 million by the end of the day. He's spitting some flames on Truth Social. They'll be interested to see, does he deliver it? If he doesn't, what does Leticia James go after first? She's got her pick of the litter, I guess, right? So, does she go cash? Does she go for the Scottish golf resort? Does she go for Mar-a-Lago? Does she go for Trump Tower? Who knows?
My guess is she's going to go for New York properties. If I had to play, I think that's the first one. Is there going to be properties in New York? Only because, cash, it seems too much of a kneecap move. And now she could do that, but if she really wants to kneecap it, maybe cash. I don't think she's going to do that. But again, I'm somewhat of an idiot, so who knows? Who knows?
And the fact that we are discussing what a political opponent can pick from her political opponent's property just reminds me that we are quickly spinning into a communist China, it feels like. So, but all that news we covered in the 6 o'clock hour, 7 o'clock hour. Then we dove into squatters' rights and what that's going to mean for Denver residents, Colorado residents, New York. I mean, it is thousands of homes across the country have been taken over by squatters, both illegal immigrants and just American citizens deciding to squat. So, how do you prevent that? What is that going to mean? All those details. Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah. When did we decide that our property rights are the same thing as your dog? When the dog goes over and pees on something, it's like, nope, my territory now.
It's mine.
When did we decide that?
Right.
When did we make the rules of, well, I'm sorry, ma'am, sir, you have to move out. He peed on it. It's obviously his now. It's his territory. This is stupid.
In this hour, we're going to get into Ronna McDaniel and her new job on NBC representing Republicans there. Chuck Todd and Stephen Hayes were not kind to her. There was almost like a hazing that took place. And in fact, I've never seen Chuck Todd so worked up and animated before.
No, who got Chuck Todd a spine for his birthday? Because thank you. I appreciate you finding the spine eventually, Chuck. But geez, I mean, I'm not commenting necessarily on what he's saying here, but he finally stood up at something. Please.
We're going to play that audio in just a second. Then we want to get into Ben Shapiro and Candace Owens as well. All that drama. So this is going to be the Power Hour on the Jeff and Bill Show. Let's check in on the news with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Morning, Jeff. Morning, Bill. 22 and cloudy in Denver, expecting highs in the mid-30s today. The 7-10 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story, as the temperatures warm a little, roads should improve, but CDOT says that you need to take precautions. Don't drive unless you have to. Also, if you have a flight today, good idea to see if it's still on time and not delayed. Dave Calhoun, Boeing CEO, stepping down after numerous negative stories, including the blown out door panel. Former President Trump in Manhattan in a courtroom again today. New evidence in the hush money case. The political hit jobs continue as the deadline to pay the $500 million bond in New York is due today. Civil rights attorney David Cohen.
It's absolutely outrageous. I think the American people, any reasonable person believes he ought to have the right to appeal this. There are tremendous issues in this case. Taking it back a step, remember, this law, it's 6312, New York executive law. You don't even have the right to a jury trial. There's a case from 2012 that says so, People versus First American Corporation. And it says the reason you don't have the right to a jury trial is because this is supposed to be of equitable nature or regulatory nature. Damages are incidental to it. Well, the $500 million isn't incidental, and he should have had the right to a jury trial.
Damages are supposed to be incidental. I don't think they adhere to that. Hey, Marco Rubio says he would run for vice president, even though he and Trump called each other names during one campaign. ABC was shocked. How could he do this? But Rubio brings up a great point.
Friends do not let friends vote for con artists. You know I could have gone on. I could have played more.
But so why didn't you play the clip of Kamala Harris basically insinuating that Joe Biden was a segregationist on the debate stage, and she's now his vice president?
We play that, but let me ask you.
We didn't play it now.
That was then.
we play that. Vice President Harris says Israel should not go into Rafah. You know why? Because she's like a human Google Earth.
Major military operation in Rafah would be a huge mistake. Let me tell you something. I have studied the maps. There's nowhere for those folks to go.
Yes, she has. Dan Senor, author of The Genius of Israel.
I actually was cringing at that line. I've studied the maps. I don't even know what that means. Look, Israel can go to Rafah. Obviously, they can debate with the administration how best to move some 1.3 million Palestinian civilians. They probably need to move some of them out of Rafah before they go in, get them possibly up to the north. I know the Israeli government is working with the U.S. on that right now.
They're meeting today. New York Mayor Eric Adams called off his trip to the southern border over the weekend because of, wait for it, safety concerns. Yes, you think? 21 in Parker, 20 in Arvada, and 22 in Denver. The CU Buffs, the men's team, NCAA tournament run comes to an end. Marquette beats CU 81-77. And the Lady Buffs, they advance to the Sweet 16, 63-50. They move on and will face Iowa. If Iowa wins tonight, they take on Caitlin Clark coming up this Saturday. NBA, Grizzlies, and the Nuggets tonight at Ball Arena, and the Avs. They have won 9 straight, 5-4 overtime win over the Penguins. It's Monday. Jeff and Bill continue on the final hour. Blake Olson, News Talk 710, KNUS.
710 5-day forecast, a winter weather advisory through mid-morning. Lingering areas of snow showers possible, especially early in the day. Quite cold. We're only going to make the 30s with a cold north wind, gusty at times. Very cold tonight for this time of year, low to mid-teens. Partly cloudy Tuesday, maybe a snow shower in the afternoon, highs low 40s. Few snow showers, 20s Tuesday night. Partly cloudy and warmer and dry Wednesday and Thursday. Clouding up Friday, maybe some showers. Meteorologist Don Day on 710 KNUS.
You know, the puppies here at the Hunt Family Ranch are tucked inside and under heat lamps and enjoying the warmth that all provides.
Nice.
So
now you got 3 puppies,
too
right?
much to worry about over here. What's that?
You got 3 puppies, right? That's what
We
they
do.
were?
We got 3 in this litter.
Nice. And
these are Colorado Mountain Dogs.
Yeah, tell us about
So technically, they would be fine outside. Maybe not puppies,
not
but
puppies,
the big dogs.
Yeah.
Big dogs would be fine outside. They love this type of weather. They have super thick white coats, and they are guardian livestock dogs. So they live with the goats and the sheep and the chickens and
yeah, and
all
you
that stuff.
talked about it, how they look a lot like Great Pyrenees, but
They do.
I saw the pictures. The females are mostly white, but there's some coloring in
Color
that
in the boys.
male. That is really
Yeah, the
cool.
dudes. He's got a
Yeah.
little color there.
Yeah, he
It's
looks
nice.
really neat. He's got a really neat pattern on him. He's adorable.
So they're growing and getting bigger. It's amazing how fast that we should get some open eyes later this week.
Oh, it's wonderful. Yeah, it's one of those things that, especially with baby animals, it's converse to humans. Baby animals grow very big very quickly. Because in the wild, small things get eaten. Odd how that happens. So
Right.
they figured out that, if we're little, maybe we get biggie as quickly as possible. Then we'll work on everything else in development. So yeah, it's all about growth right now.
So
'cause
one of my
good idea.
very favorite Ronald Reagan jokes of all time has
Yeah.
to do with puppies. Have you
Oh,
heard
yeah?
this one?
I don't know. Or remind me.
Okay, so the Democrats were hosting a convention, and the reporters were there. And outside of the convention, there was a little boy with a box of puppies, and he was selling Democrat puppies. Democrat puppies. Come here
Okay.
and buy your Democrat puppies. Well, the next week was the Republican convention, and the same boy was there with a box of puppies. Buy a Republican puppy. a Republican puppy for sale. Come here and buy a Republican puppy. And the reporter goes up to the boy and he goes, look, last week you were here selling Democrat puppies. This week you're selling Republican puppies. What's the difference? And he goes, well, this week their eyes are open.
That's good. That is really good. That is really, really good. That's a nice one.
That was a good Ronald Reagan.
That's fantastic.
Probably one of my favorites, Ronald Reagan. All right. So over the weekend, Ronna McDaniel made her debut on NBC. And, well, some of her colleagues on NBC weren't super happy about this. Let's start with Chuck Todd, Bill.
Let me deal with the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
I think our bosses owe you an apology for putting you in this situation because I don't know what to believe. She is now a paid contributor by NBC News. Well, I have no idea whether any answer she gave to you was because she didn't want to mess up her contract. She wants us to believe that she was speaking for the RNC when the RNC was paying for her. So she has credibility issues that she still has to deal with.
Yeah.
Is she speaking for herself or is she speaking on behalf of who's paying her? But once at the RNC, she did say that, hey, I'm speaking for the party. I get that. That's part of the job. So what about here? I will say this. I think your interview did a good job of exposing, I think, many of the contradictions. And look, there's a reason why there's a lot of journalists at NBC News uncomfortable with this because many of our professional dealings with the RNC over the last 6 years have been met with gaslighting, have been met with character assassination. So that's where you begin here. And so when NBC made the decision to give her NBC News' credibility, you got to ask yourself, what does she bring NBC News? And when we make deals like this, and I've been at this company a long time, you're doing it for access to audience. Sometimes it's access to an individual, and we can have a journalistic ethics debate about that. And I'm willing to have that debate. And if you told me we were hiring her as a technical advisor to the Republican convention, I think that would be certainly defensible. If you told me we're talking to her, but let's see how she does in some interviews and maybe vet her with actual journalists inside the network, see if it's a two-way, what she can bring the network. So I do think, unfortunately, this interview is always going to be looked through the prism of who is she speaking for, right? I think you did everything you could do. You got put into an impossible situation, booking this interview, and then all of a sudden the rugs pull out from under you. You find out she's being paid to show up. It's unfortunate for this program, but I am glad you did the best that you could, and that's why the three of us are on here to try to bolster that editorial independence.
You had to interview somebody. You had to interview. It's like sitting there like consoling her on an interview she had to do. I have never seen Chuck Todd, Bill, in my entire life so fired up about anything.
Yeah, me either. Again, who gave him a spine for his birthday? Thank you. Appreciate that.
And
We've
all
loved this
over
guy for a number of years.
Contributor.
Yeah.
A paid contributor. She didn't get her own show like Jen Psaki got her own show. But why is it that when conservatives, Republicans go into the mainstream media, there's questions around credibility. But when Jen Psaki or anybody from the DNC goes and ends up in a show, we give you your own show. Welcome to NBC.
Well, I think it's slightly different with Psaki and Ronna
Circle
McDaniel.
back.
Well, the issue being that Ronna McDaniel was the head of the RNC, where Psaki was just the talking head for the White House. And those talking heads from the White House seem to be given their own shows a lot. Sean Spicer, you've got Dana Perino, we keep going back. I mean, a lot of them end up having their own.
It's part of the game.
Yeah.
Look, this is where Ken Buck's going.
Yeah. Now,
we know where Ken's going and Mike Pence.
Yeah, Michael Steele and Donna Brazile, I don't think have their own shows, but they are commentators. So I think that
they are. They're
Ronna,
commentators.
So I think Ronna fits more in that vein. However, I do agree with Chuck Todd and his anger at his employer for setting up for the interview, because as Chuck outlined earlier, the interview was booked and then you find out you're interviewing somebody on the same team. And this is the first public interview that person is going to get. And tactically, it changes the conversation. It absolutely changes the conversation.
Yeah, I think it changes the conversation, but what's with the consoling? You're professionals here.
Well, the issue being,
I've been put in hostile conversations before, and you do your best. This
but I think that he's consoling her and saying that he understands that listen, you did the best you could because you were put in an untenable situation, that you were preparing for one type of a conversation that could be somewhat adversarial and confrontational, and now because she's under our umbrella, it has to be less so. And he's saying that's not fair of our bosses to do that to you.
You think that was it?
Oh, that's what he was saying. No, that I'm saying that's his critique of, I'm sorry about why, that's his critique and his offering condolences to the other person. Yeah, the interviewer. That's it. Yeah. It is. It's a difficult situation to be put into.
You think NBC would have said to the person, I don't know her name, she's hosting.
I know we should know it. I don't.
We've moved on from Meet the Press. It's now
Me
like
too.
on their
I know
multiple different hosts, but
and the conversation sucks.
You think NBC came to her and said, you got to tone it down because now she's part of the team?
Oh, no, not at all. But I think she knows how the team and the game is played. And here's the reason being is if you are, and anybody can see this, if you are interviewing a person that is outside of the organization, that's a different conversation than if you interview somebody on the inside of the organization. It's also different if you're interviewing that person who is now on the inside of the organization and it is their very first time sitting in front of that microphone with those call letters, paying their salary. That's a difficult thing to do.
This was when I started, and Bill wasn't quite as direct at me either. He was he was taking it easy on me.
I'll tell you times I had to. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely, my friend. And same thing for you. There were times too when you did it. And I appreciate now that we can just let loose at times. Again, never personal. But but we'll get into it.
Well, I'll tell you what I think is going on. Here is looking at the media, looking how partisan the media is, looking at how they're completely driven after going after Donald Trump. Here you have somebody that
one side of the media, one side.
Yeah.
The other side of the media is continually driven on going after Biden. I mean, it is fair to say that.
Right.
So,
it's like one network, one and a half networks versus.
I know. And I agree with that.
But NBC in particular, I think was hazing Ronna McDaniel. And here's where I think, and we're going to get to Stephen Hayes' clip in here in just a second.
Yeah.
I think what they were doing was so Ronna, while not the biggest cheerleader for Trump, pretty big cheerleader for Trump, right? She's not Lara Trump, I get it, but a pretty big cheerleader for Trump. And I think what her colleagues were doing was laying the groundwork and going, if you're going to be a part of this, I mean, going after, she's got credibility issues, actual journalist. She's a paid contributor to RNC. Can we really trust her? All that, everything that Chuck Todd said there was about sending a message to Ronna McDaniel that until you are not going to be accepted here until you deny Donald Trump and become critical of Donald Trump. That entire media ecosystem is based on that. And they're not going to tolerate somebody that is an apologist for Trump. Let's play Stephen Hayes' quote clip here.
On the one hand, if you've read some of the criticism of NBC that has come since the announcement, it is very clear that some of the critics just don't want to be confronted with Republican voices or conservative arguments. So there is that. And that's bad. We want to have a robust exchange between people who believe different things. But I agree with what's been said here. I mean, that's not what Romney McDaniel is doing. That's not what she's been doing. And she has huge credibility problems, not because she's been a partisan spinner on behalf of the Republican Party, but because she not only presided, but drove the QAnonization of the Republican Party during her tenure. And it is the case that when you look at what she did with the fake electors specifically, she wasn't on that phone call because she felt bad about somebody. Donald Trump was on the call. Right. He was telling them, she was saying, we'll get you lawyers, because the entire 6-week period after the November 2020 election was about making the case that the election had been stolen. She did a tremendous disservice to the country by making the argument that led to the erosion of faith. We've got half of the Republicans right now believe the election wasn't fair. And even today, confronted with her past votes, she couldn't give you a straight answer until your fourth or fifth time pressing.
Chuck, final 10 seconds.
Look, it is important for this network and for always to have a wide aperture. Okay. And covering voters that have disparate beliefs, having ideological diversity on this panel is something I prided myself on, you and I both took plenty of grief when you have ideological and political diversity. I think all of us and mainstream media do a terrible job sometimes of geographic diversity and all this stuff. But I sort of call into question, and sometimes people think they understand the politics of this country when they're sort of in a very, very, very blue city. This is a Washington operative who I don't think is going to bring the network what they think it wants to bring to the network. I understand the motivation, but this execution, I think, was poor.
Someone said to me last night, we live in complicated times. Thank you guys for being here.
Way to avoid that. Complicated times.
I know, exactly.
Don't say a damn thing.
What a way to wrap up the interview there.
Let me say something without saying anything. We live in complicated times. And we wonder why there's no respect for journalists. There, right there at the end. God forbid you take a position.
1865. I spent most of my weekend watching Lincoln documentaries. I can't get enough of them. I will watch those and Ulysses S. Grant documentaries all day, as if those weren't complicated times. By the way, did you know Abraham Lincoln jumped out of a window to avoid quorum one time when he was a state legislator?
Yeah, I remember that story, which is weird. There's so many things. He was such an interesting guy. I was very,
Well, he's involved in local politics. But this is a little side note.
Yeah.
They were, even back then in the 1860s, probably even more so than they are today, local politics was so vicious. So if you think the Dave Williams, Jeff Crank, Dick Wadhams, state party issues are anything new in politics, it is especially more local. And I've always explained it this way. Have you ever seen the movie Seabiscuit?
Yes, I have. Yeah.
You remember when the jockey starts out with Seabiscuit and he's racing those local races and they're all sitting there whipping each other?
Oh, yeah.
Like beating each other up. And then he gets to the actual Kentucky Derby and all the politicians but horse racers or jockeys are nice to each other.
Yeah.
And they're
polite.
It's almost the same way in politics. There's still some vindictiveness and viciousness at the top. Definitely is. But local politics, there's nothing more vindictive than local politics. It's a side note.
It's just like everything. Nothing's more dangerous or dirty than a division game in any sport. Right. Whatever division is, that's different. It's the different game. Yeah.
In minor league baseball, watch out.
Yep.
So when I listen to Chuck Todd, when I listen to Stephen Hayes, they're going to make Ronna McDaniel do one of two things. If she continues to be an apologist for Donald Trump and a supporter of Donald Trump, I don't think she'll remain at NBC. You can just mark my words on that. I could be wrong. You can hold me accountable to this. If she goes out and spends the next 6 months cheering on Donald Trump and defending him and arguing for him, and NBC gives her a platform, I will be shocked. I think you will see a pivot in Ronna McDaniel, where she now becomes a far more critical. She's going to become like Michael Steele. She's going to become a lot more critical of Donald Trump. And I think that's where that show goes. And I think that's how she maintains her role there. And those messages, because seriously, when have you seen journalists get that frustrated and angry?
Oh, yeah.
Really? Like over credibility issues because you hired a partisan politician? Really?
Yeah.
Like you did that with Jen Psaki. You guys do this all the time. And yet this is like really serious journalism that we've got. What are we doing to the network? Come on.
Well, the issue for me and where I can empathize with both Mr. Hayes and Mr. Todd are based on the role that Ronna McDaniel had leading the RNC in what happened post-election. That is significant. We know that she coordinated with Trump's campaign, and his lawyers and others in order to falsify electors. We know that she offered legal representation for the false electors. We know that she helped plan the list of who was going to object on January 6th to the vote counts. We know that she was involved in planning and getting the state legislators prepped for what they were going to have to do in order to put Donald Trump back in the White House, despite what the actual vote said. That, to me, is a little bit more than a Jen Psaki or a Sean Spicer coming out and saying it was the biggest election crowd ever. That to me, the involvement there goes further. I look at Psaki and I don't think that she has a lot of credibility. The same thing I look at the other spokespeople and I don't feel they have a lot of credibility. But because of what Ronna McDaniel was involved with and what she said post-election, she absolutely went out there and said it was stolen, said it was fraudulent, said it wasn't real, and that Donald Trump was the real president. That's an issue.
Do you think there's going to be a form of repentance?
Here's the thing is, I think
in order to keep her job, or you think she'll double down and they'll still keep her?
Well, here's the thing is, I think Ronna has to look internally and have a crisis of conscience.
So repent.
No. She doesn't have to. No, she doesn't have to repent. She can go out there. No, she can go out there and say she still believes this, that the election was stolen and that Donald Trump is a legitimate president and that everything that led up to January 6th was appropriate. Again, I'm not blaming her for January 6th. I don't even blame Donald Trump for the actions individuals took on January 6th. I'm not, again, that's not what I'm doing. But she does have responsibility for actions there. If she still believes that, then she needs to come out on air and she needs to say that. If she does not, if she decides that what that was is wrong and she shouldn't have done that and that it was a legitimate election, then she needs to come out on air and say that. As long as she comes out and says one or the other, okay, I'll deal with you that way. And we can see, how, and your employer can also decide whether or not they want to continue having you, spout that. That's you dance at the pleasure of the king any day this week. And to some people's joy, Salem could come in here and fire me. Some people would love that and it would be a celebration and they'd be happy about that. But I dance at the pleasure of the king. And so if they decide that what comes out of my pie hole isn't what they want on this microphone, what am I going to do about it? That's their choice. Whether they like, so that's the only thing too, is that Ronna dances the pleasure of the king. And she needs to decide what she does.
I think the king will be, you repent for what happened around January 6th and your support of President Trump, and you become a critic of that. And I think that what you'll see is a buildup of these types of Republicans, the Liz Cheney, the Ken Bucks, Mike Pence, I think will fall in this category now, that between now and November will be on those networks and they will be paid handsomely. And we've talked about that.
Yeah.
They are capitalists. And I think the role, and I'm fascinated. I really am by the folks that do that.
Yeah.
That take on that role, especially like if you're a Cheney and you spent 8 years with your father being referred to as like the devil incarnate by these networks, and then you join them to beat up Republicans. That's weird to me. That's weird to me.
The thing for me is that I disagree with where you're starting with the conversation, because you're talking about that if Ronna comes out and is repentant and comes out and says other things, then obviously this is what I'm hearing from you, is that she's changed her mind based on the paycheck. That it is the paycheck that is influencing her views, not herself. Is that what you're saying?
I'd like to see evidence to the contrary.
Okay. Then the problem.
I've watched like the David Frenches, right? I'm kind of fascinated by these people that join the other side in bashing Republicans, or the Republican candidate or stuff like that.
I get that, but hang on, let's go back.
But I don't know. I don't know. What I'm trying to point out is you're going to have a news agency that's collecting a lot of Republicans to bash Republicans. I think you have existing anchors that are sending a strong message to Ronna McDaniel that you need to get in line with the party line. And I'm going to be fascinated to see what Ronna does. If Ronna changes her tune and keeps her job, or if she remains just as bold and strong as a Trump defender and is still able to maintain her job, I would be shocked.
See, the interesting thing there is that you assume the only time she was being, because you say that if she's there on NBC in order to keep her job, in order to keep the paycheck coming, she has to go out and bash Trump. But you're then assuming when she was getting paid by the RNC, she was being true to herself and a truth teller and righteous. And the criticism from Chuck Todd is exactly this. If you come here to NBC and you're a Donald Trump critic, how do I possibly believe anything you ever said when you were getting paid by the RNC? If the premise is that what comes out of Ronna McDaniel's face is based on who's signing the check, that's Chuck Todd's criticism, that we can't trust her because previously it was this group who wanted her to say this, and she said that while the check was coming. So now if she comes on NBC and says Donald Trump is horrible and going to destroy the country, well, isn't she just doing that, like you say, based on the paycheck?
That's
the problem. That's the issue.
Friends, your home is a significant asset, and choosing the right team to help you sell it can be the difference in thousands of dollars in your pocket. We had her in studio last week. Incredible lady leading a wonderful team, Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team, the realtors I trust. The Empower Home team provides exceptional service and valuable advice and employs unique systems to maximize the money you can get for your home. Getting an offer above your home's asking price is great, but you're leaving money on the table by not working with Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team. Gay and her experts get their clients an average of $30,000 more. Could you use an extra $30,000? That's precisely why you need Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team. Their exclusive database is filled over 14,000 pre-screened buyers ready to make a purchase. Take the stress and hassle out of selling your home while getting the best price. Here's an unbeatable offer. Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team will sell your house for 100% of the asking price, or Gay will pay you the difference. It's an offer you simply cannot refuse. Get 100% of your asking price guaranteed with Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team. Reach out to my friends and realtors, Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team today. Call 833-301-SOLD. That's 833-301-SOLD, or go to gayhasthebuyers.com. That's GAYE hasthebuyers.com. We'll get to your calls and texts and this Ben Shapiro, Candace Owens feud that has spilled out over the weekend on the Jeff and Bill Show next. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710, KNUS.
Breaking news coming through from CNN. Trump's legal team faced testy questioning today from the judge in the state appeals court, but the judge has changed the bond amount. State appeals court judge says Donald Trump has 10 more days to pay a $175 million bond in a civil fraud ruling, staying enforcement of the $454 million judgment against him and his company. So 10 more days, $175 million bond while they appeal all this. This by no means changes the amount that Donald Trump has got to pay in this civil matter, but it changes the amount in the bond necessary for the appeals process to move forward from $454 million to $175 million. I was mentioning to Bill off air, I think Leticia James took a page right out of The Art of the Deal. I really do. I mean, you start with an extremely high number, like 454, and then all of a sudden 175 doesn't sound so bad.
Yeah, the award was set by the judge, but I'm wondering if he's going to be able to pay it. That's the other thing. Is this is an interesting test. This to me is part of the court system being, in my opinion, too deferential to Trump, but I also feel that this is the judge in part calling his bluff and saying, okay, Mr. Multi-billionaire, you say that you can't get enough security for $500 million. Let's see if you can get this. And it's interesting because Trump talked about how they'd gone to 30 different individuals and organizations in order to get securities, and none of them would loan him any money. And you know what the weird thing is? You don't have to get all of it in one bond. He could have gotten, because he had 30 individuals, he could have gotten 5-10 million from everybody. And he could have cumulatively had the bond because everybody would then have lower risk. So it's interesting that nobody would give it.
You look at that and you go, well, obviously they don't want to do business with Donald Trump. I look at that and I go, the federal government and the Attorney General of New York has petrified anybody from wanting to work with Donald Trump. And that's just where we are in the state of our government. I want to get to Nick here in just a second. I want to talk to you first about my friends at the law offices of Dan Kaplan. Dan is believed to be the only lawyer in Colorado to win 5 straight multi-million-dollar jury verdicts in motor vehicle crash cases. Dan and his partner, Babar Waheed, won the largest truck crash jury verdict in Colorado history. The firm's history of 7- and 8-figure settlements and verdicts speaks for itself. They are a firm where good people from all walks of life, without regard to ability to pay, receive the level of legal representation that the rich and powerful enjoy. So you watch all this happening with Donald Trump and you're like, man, what kind of legal team can get him out of a $300 million bond lower? It takes a good legal team. And fortunately in Colorado, if you face a problem, Dan Kaplan's law is like having a pro legal team right there with you. Dan Kaplan believes that talk is cheap, experience counts, results matter. The firm would be happy to share with you its track record of outstanding jury verdicts and out-of-court settlements. Dan Kaplan believes that who you hire says a lot about you to everyone involved in the case. They suggest that you choose a law firm that shares your values. Dan shares mine. He would be my first call. The firm believes that its core values have been the foundation of its historic success. Those core values, faith, integrity, hard work, and a dedication to righteous causes. If you need Dan's help, give him a call, 303-770-5551. That's 303-770-5551, or hit dancaplaslaw.com. That's Dan, CAPLIS law.com. All right, Nick, let's get to you. You're from Denver. Thanks for being on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Well, thanks for taking my call. And as far as this whole Trump saga, this soap opera, this ongoing soap opera, it exposes how corrupt and hypocritical our whole system has gotten, especially in deep blue states like New York. And hopefully enough Americans will use the 3 pounds of brain matter they were born with and can see through the nonsense.
Yeah. Nick, to me, it's Soviet Union style politics.
Yes,
and it's disgusting.
And if we let this go, it's just going to get worse, and it's going to get to the point where you will have an armed rebellion.
Really? Why do you think that?
Yes, I do.
Why do you think that?
As more and more of our rights are taken away from us, and the problems start striking home. In other words, they're not far away. They're right at your doorstep. And I'm hoping, I might be dead wrong, I'm just hoping enough people say enough is enough.
What, at curiosity, Nick, though, what rights have been taken from you in the recent past?
I had some serious problems with the IRS, for starters. They took all my rights away from me, and I didn't have the money to fight back, and I didn't have the knowledge to fight back.
Technically,
and it ruined my business.
IRS can't take your rights. They can take your money and property, can't take your rights. I'm wondering what rights of yours were violated, because that's what you said. We were going to have an armed insurrection because of our rights. What rights have been taken from you?
They didn't take any rights away, but you're right. But they did take the money and the business away.
Okay. That seems to me that you're mad at the government, and you're just saying we're having an uprising against the government. This whole, I think you're using the whole idea of rights as window dressing. You're using it as window dressing, saying, obviously, I'm so aggrieved. We now have to have another civil war. And I'm trying to have you help me figure out how we get there, even though you're mad that whatever. And I'm not going to adjudicate whether the IRS was right or wrong at this point, but how do we get to civil war at that point? Help me.
Well, it goes way beyond the Internal Revenue Code.
Yeah.
People's rights are constantly being violated on a neighbor's basis
by the government.
By the government with their rules
and
regulations, their zoning, and their push to have everything decided out of Washington D.C. instead of on the local level.
Well,
I mean,
I disagree with you, because we have with our local legislatures dealing with property rights and holding construction companies at harm and things like that. That's not coming out of Washington, sir.
And Nick, I appreciate the call, but I get as a student of history, I don't even think we should mess around with that type of language of
I find
armed rebellion, of violence. If you know how horrific the Civil War was, how horrific it was, and I also want to remind people too that Republicans are unionists. That's the foundation of our party. We don't break off.
Not according to them now.
Separate out. We don't grab arms and go out there and fight people in this because we have a disagreement in this country. That Civil War
that's news to
was
some,
hell.
That's news to some people,
and it should be. And I'll take the stand on this. That as a Republican, that you're looking at 25,000 casualties, 50,000 casualties in some of these battles.
Yeah.
And I understand that the issue of slavery, as well as the breakup of the Union, were huge issues at that point. I don't think we're anywhere near that, and I sure as hell hope we never are.
No, I'm with you. I don't think we are either. And this is why I wanted to explore that. Is I hear a lot of people talking about, oh, we're so close to a civil war, or soon we're going to have, and we've heard more people on the right than on the left say that soon we have to resort to Second Amendment solutions. And that's important. I think
it's a mistake.
When you say Second Amendment solutions, I think it's a huge mistake. And I agree with you. And here's the reason why I feel it's a mistake. I feel the people that are claiming that are doing it as cosplay. They're pretending to be our founding fathers. They're pretending as if they are the ones that have been so aggrieved, and we are the colonists, and we are going to be the righteous ones that will rise up, and we will take off the shackles of our oppressor. But if you truly believe that, and you feel it is time to pick up your firearm, and you're going to be involved in taking your country back, you're going to have to shoot somebody that has an American flag on their uniform. And as soon as you do that, you're a traitor. You're no longer an American. You don't get to talk about how you're defending the flag. You don't get to talk about the fact that you stand proudly for our national anthem. You don't get to talk a single sentence about what the Constitution means to you, because you have become a traitor. You are not defending the flag. You are starting a war. You want to do it? Go ahead, but stop pretending that you are the righteous defending our flag, because you have to shoot people that swore allegiance to that flag and have it on their uniform. Otherwise, you're Civil war doesn't work. You're a traitor.
It's another level that I don't even think you should be joking around about.
Not at all.
I mean,
That's how seriously I take it.
And if you sit there and you look at what happened to our country during the Civil War and the boys that died and the amount and all that stuff, it's
that's why
look,
I personally take it so seriously.
I get the frustration that voters have. I get the desire to put in Donald Trump because he's going to throw some elbows when it comes to going after the swamp and stuff like that. But when you jump to armed rebellion and our country going that direction, I'm like, you remember what Republicans were all about? We were the Unionists.
Yeah.
And when we got power, half the country seceded. Those were the Democrats. Those were the Southern Democrats. And then we went through hell to try to put this country back together. So not something to joke around about. All right, we are totally running late.
We are. We got a break again. I know.
We never even got to Candace Owens and Ben Shapiro.
We can do that next.
You've heard a lot about how treating low testosterone can improve your sleep, your workouts, your energy levels, and more. But I want to talk to you about your love drive, because low testosterone can have a significant impact on your desire for intimacy. And if you're in a relationship or wanting to be in a relationship, a low love drive can be a real problem. There's good news. Go to RockyMountainMen'sClinic.com and take the low T quiz on their website. It's a simple 10-question quiz with yes or no answers, and it only takes 2 minutes. Then schedule a consult with Rocky Mountain Men's Clinic. A Colorado licensed medical provider will review your results with you and discuss your options. Cost of the appointment is only $99,000. I was thinking of all the casualties that happened under the Civil War. No, it's not. The cost of the appointment is only $99, which includes medical consult, T and PSA test. And if you sign up for a testosterone treatment, the day of your appointment, your visit is free. Rocky Mountain Men's Clinic has served the Front Range of Colorado for nearly a decade and successfully treated tens of thousands of men. Call them today at 720-440-7900 or visit RockyMountainMen'sClinic.com. That's 720-440-7900 or visit RockyMountainMen'sClinic.com. We'll get to your calls and texts, and Ben Shapiro and Candace Owens on the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710, KNUS.
At this hour in Berlin, I'm Trent Murray, and here are the top stories we're following. Russian authorities have charged 4 men they say were responsible for a terrorist attack that killed at least 137 people. Prosecutors say the men stormed the Crocus City Music Hall on Friday night and began shooting concert goers before setting the building alight and fleeing. Islamic State, or ISIS, has claimed responsibility for the attack, which came just 2 weeks after the US Embassy in Moscow issued a public safety alert warning of the heightened risk of extremist groups targeting entertainment venues inside of Russia. Space forecasters have issued a rare geomagnetic storm watch, saying a solar flare could interfere with radio transmissions here on Earth. Experts say there's no reason for the public to be concerned, with systems in place to manage the effects of the flare. 2 crew members on board an American cruise ship have died following a, quote, on-board incident in the ship's engineering compartment. Holland America said the incident happened while the vessel was at Half Moon Cay in the Bahamas, saying the cause of the accident is being investigated and other crew members are being offered counselling. The crew members were working on board the New Amsterdam ship, which had set sail out of Fort Lauderdale on March 16 for a 7-night trip. And that's what you need to know at this hour. I'm Trent Murray in Berlin on Salem News Channel.
been a wild show. If you missed any of it, go to 710knus.com to download the podcast there. Everything from this bond that Donald Trump's got to turn in today to squatters' rights to Rhonda McDaniel on NBC. And I think we've probably got more calls and texts than just about anything we've ever done before. So it's a great conversation with the listeners. Thank you all for being a part of this week's or today's show. Charlie Kirk will be up next. And then tomorrow we'll get into the Ben Shapiro, Candace Owens stuff, as well as MTG calling for a new Speaker of the House.
Yeah.
I don't,
why would we do that?
Is it just that we're at a point where like they're only happy if she's it?
I don't understand. And the thing for me is that strategically, you think about how narrow that margin is. And in order for Johnson to keep his job, in theory, he'd have to get support from the Dems. And MTG says then that invalidates him as a speaker to begin with. And you're like, wow, this really is. I mean, it's almost like it's almost as if her point is, hey, guys, pay attention. We don't know what we're doing. That's really what I feel like she's doing at this point, calling attention to the fact that, look, we are dysfunctional. Watch the dysfunction. That's just strange.
And I understand the frustration around the vote. Believe me, I'm in the Mike Lee, Chip Roy camp of like, if I ever got elected, it would be no, but you're going to shut down the government. But people aren't going to get their paychecks. I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm tired of doing these omnibus spending packages. If you want to pay the soldiers and the police officers or whoever we got to pay, then bring that bill to the floor. But packing it all together with Planned Parenthood spending and all that other stuff, I'm just not going to do it anymore. I get the frustration, but this constant, we got to get a new speaker.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think you're right. It shows that Republicans can't lead.
And if you were going to have another government shutdown, I don't care what party it is, I think the rule should be if the government shut down, the first people not to get paid are the lawmakers. And
preach.
They don't get retroactive pay. You missed the paycheck, money's gone. Deal with it.
I'm all for it. You've been listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS. Stay warm. We'll see you tomorrow.